Oh, the Fantasmagorium is proud to present Set to Stun, a Star Trek show that is an irregular one. Stardate 20233.02. Like stars through the galaxy, these are the pew-pews of the tearful crew of the USS Titan. A. Oh, Picard and Riker and Crusher, while back at the showrunner Prime, Raffi and Worf. Your landing party for today is Admiral Steve Foley, who will put to the test the 3-episode rule. Lieutenant Antiderivative is in her happy place, and hopefully she will be joining us shortly. And I am Chief Scotty R37 with the weird veering in the middle of the road. Without further ado, energize. Adieu. Gesundheit. Yeah. Jill should be here, everybody.
Be careful driving in the middle of the road if traffic is going both ways.
Oh, I can't help it. You've never seen the program, but there's a football player who just sits in the middle of the road and
I still enjoy your pretend star dates more than anything.
Don't you? They're relatively accurate from what I understand.
Nice.
Relatively. Well, 2022, and then followed by the month, which is 3, followed by the point, and then you get the 2-digit day of the month. So that's how I do it. That's how Dad did it. Anyway. So we are in episode 3, 17 seconds.
Yes.
Initial reaction to the episode as a whole, Steve.
As a whole, I liked it. I liked this episode. I felt like, I know probably a lot of people will probably feel like this is kind of just a continuation filler episode, maybe. But I think we got a lot of threads are starting to, and arcs are starting to materialize out of basically what I thought was table setting. We said
yes,
the first episode and even into the second episode. These, because the way we tell these long form storytelling in these streaming shows now, as opposed to the older Star Trek, where we're more episodic, beginning, middle, and end in each episode. You may have some hanging over arcs for 3 or 4 episodes, but for the most part, you got your 3-act structure in an episode, more like a procedural.
And that does create a real drag effect on a lot of the storylines that are left open-ended until the later episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think if you're looking for a satisfactory kind of ending in each one of these episodes, you're not going to get it. But the audience, I think, now is so kind of attuned to this form of storytelling because it's so prevalent. So hopefully people kind of, it lands on people the way it should. But overall, I liked the episode. I thought 17 seconds was really cool. I thought it was really good. The idea behind the 17 seconds, we'll get into that when we start breaking down the episode. But the idea behind the 17 seconds was cool. I thought the writing was good. Overall, my 3-episode rule is intact, and I will be watching again next week.
You are confidently going to episode 4.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of people like this one, but I'm not enjoying it.
And understood.
Scotty, it felt like, I don't want to say it felt like old Star Trek because it's never gonna feel like that, but I felt like we're back in familiar territory. I think what I've liked the most out of all 3 of these episodes so far is the banter between Picard and Riker. This episode, but I'll talk a little bit about this more, is that I really like while about halfway through this episode, I'm like, I think I'm ready for a Jonathan Frakes led show. I think I'm done with the Patrick Stewart now. He can, after this season, he can, retire from this, IP. But I think for sure, I'd like to see more Riker. I think he's and you can tell by even in his acting, the acting he does, it's so playful and fun, especially in this episode. But you could really see it throughout all 3 episodes. He's kind of in a prime acting wise state or status, maybe that Patrick Stewart was during Next Generation. And I, a little bit older maybe, but still delivering. He's still able to deliver these great lines, deliver fun banter, and also get serious when it's time to get serious. So I was about halfway through. I'm like, you know what, I would really, if they had a Titan show next, and it's Captain Riker and 79 is number 1 or what, the first officer. I'm
sure.
I'm completely in with that.
Well, I like the banter when it lands, and I think that there were a couple of instances during this episode, and we will get to it when we get to it, that sort of echoed previous conflicts, and it reminded me a little too closely of that. No argument in terms of Riker being able to hold screen presence in a Star Trek show. I don't think that's an issue. I wasn't so enamored with the writing of this, and one of the reasons is that I sort of took a little bit of a critical eye, because there was something that I noticed over the weekend that I almost see as being unforgivable in this show. And it has changed my opinion to a more critical and possibly negative perspective on it. Because I had watched the review that Mike and Rich from Red Letter Media did of Picard season 3, episode 1. And in the algorithm, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the bell, do the things,
do all the stuff.
It popped up the episode 10 of season 2. And it showed Agnes Jurati taking the La Sirena away at the end of the series, of the season, to the future, or to go establish the Borg, new Borg cooperation as opposed to collective.
Right.
And I realized, but the La Sirena, Raffi has the La Sirena.
Right.
Now, so in any other science fiction show, when the hero ship had been removed from the plot and then it was inexplicably returned at the beginning of the next season, people would be up in arms about it. And I have heard nobody discuss it. No one has talked about it. No one has identified this. And I'm thinking it's not a matter of she's still away, but she is with us. It is disregarding the seasons 1 and 2 to a point where it's insulting to the people who are fans of it and saying that they will stand by the new Trek through that, whether it be good or bad, or if it's not as good as the old stuff, we'll still hold out for what is coming that is new. But even the stuff that is coming that is new is disrespectful to its own internal logic.
Yes, it is very clear that Terry is cherry picking which elements from season 1 and 2 that he's carrying forth without being brave enough to actually retcon seasons 1 and 2.
Or who knew? If they wanted to actually introduce a new ship, wouldn't that be a prime opportunity? It's Raffi's ship now. Raffi can have her version of the La Sirena, or establish that it's the same class, make it a different color at least. Like, that was something where I was like, how much credence and where are we pulling from? If you are on season 3 of Picard, that's great. You still have to acknowledge, and that's one of the defenses that I had of episodes 1 through 3, is that there are things, and you said it yourself, Steve, as well, there are things that Terry Matalas is saddled with that he has to continue with, and I appreciate that. But there's also consequences of the last 2 seasons that don't seem to make never mind.
Right. So I agree. I didn't even think about that. Right. Never been popped into my head watching any of this. So obviously it wasn't that fucking big a deal to me. It may be a big deal to you, and if you want to turn off the show because there's a little bit of inconsistency there, that's
not a little bit. That's like a car losing a wheel.
come on, it's not that big a deal. Dude.
I think it is because
But Scotty, if it is, then that's completely you're in your completely within your right to do so. Feel that way, obviously. But all I can say is, I would hold that criticism until the end of the series.
Now,
just because of the way that these stories are told, you may get an answer that's satisfactory by the end of the show. But if not, then you're right. There's a glaring hole there.
And I don't think that particular hole is going to be addressed. If it is, then I will absolutely take it back. But I think that that's something that people are not supposed to pay attention to. And if you did catch it, just forget about it. But that's a huge detail from seasons 1 and 2 that is just being like, it came back. How do we know? We don't.
That's the thing with Kurtzman Trek. It doesn't matter. Don't ask questions.
And we're talking about Star Trek fans where if you lost the shuttle pod L-Baz and it showed up in a further episode, Next Generation fans would freak. The reason that it goes from the Galileo to the Copernicus is because they lost the Galileo. Like there are things that the 735, the original Gene Roddenberry and Berman Trek adhered to in terms of at least respecting the continuity to a certain extent. And this one is no matter.
Yes, it didn't always succeed, but it tried.
Right. Yes. And if it did, it was something that was minor as opposed. And I don't think that the return of the hero ship from the first 2 seasons is something that is maybe they'll explain it. That's more of a, really? That is an elephant in the room for me. However, that's something that I'll wrestle with and something that I will continually bring up until it is addressed. And if it isn't, then that will color my opinion of the series going forward. But I am going to say I was not a fan of this episode. It reminded me of too many things. And it felt a little, we'll get through it as we get through the episode, but I am going to employ something called a mulligan on the 3-episode rule because we are in episode 3 and I am going to continue on because I am still intrigued with the writers, or not the writers, the cast returning. But Dave Cullen said that if you are holding out, at least give it till episode 4. So I am going to give the obligatory get out of jail free card, the mulligan, the do-over. I will let this episode slide and I will see what happens in episode 4. And at that point, I will decide whether or not I want to talk about it on the internet. I'm still going to watch it, but I don't know if I'm going to talk about it on the internet. That's the only thing. And that's a promise that was made to several people, including myself. But yeah, Jill, what are your initial thoughts of this episode just before we get into the plot proper?
Well, there's some inconsistencies in the writing in terms of the main villain and some other areas where I feel like it's a little bit hokey and not consistent with the characterizations that we as we understand them without any explanation as to why they've changed yet. Which is, of course, the nature of a thing that has 10 episodes to explain these things. That they
absolutely
that I believe they should be upfront with it, but they don't want to be. So we'll just have to keep watching if we want to, and if we don't, we'll stop.
Well, yeah. And again, I am going to watch this because I'm intrigued for it, but I'm just sort of a mind that I don't understand the strong passions on either side of this particular argument surrounding this show. It is somewhat contentious with people on the internet and Star Trek fans as well. And I don't understand being vehemently against it or passionately for it. It is complete. It is reeking with adequacy.
Well, I
understand totally adequate.
The side that hates it believes that any support for this, even if it is the best of the new Trek, will only support more terrible Star Trek like Discovery and all the rest. And the side that's for it thinks that supporting it will encourage better Star Trek.
So it's a corporate battle?
Yeah, basically.
Is it about the story at all, or is it about what's going on behind the scenes?
It is behind the scenes because essentially the Secret Hideout is owned by Kurtzman and he is in control as long as Secret Hideout makes Star Trek, no matter how much Terry says he was in charge of this.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. That's it. That's all it is.
Right.
So, but if we actually want to
Really-
talk about the
yeah,
story,
yeah.
then we have to get into the episode.
And you can only do so
We
much with what
do.
you're given, right? And
We
your marching
do.
orders.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
And,
But
and to be perfectly honest, neither side is going to win their battle. Because it absolutely doesn't matter to Paramount, to CBS, or to Secret Hideout whether people like it or hate it, because everybody's watching it to see if they like it or hate it. That's a win for them. It's just numbers to them.
Which has been the nature of entertainment.
And that's not just with Star Trek. That's all IP across the board.
Right. But if the fiction of the show is the battleground on which the corporate war is being fought, then you don't have a beef with the episode. You have a beef with the management. And so but as far as I'm concerned, so far this has been, hey, it's neat to see them. When are you guys going to do anything? Yeah. And so far it has been, as far as I'm concerned, just a sequel to Nemesis, a sort of cap on the need for a finale on the next generation. They had one with All Good Things, then they made movies, and then Nemesis happened, which is awful. And now they're making, we're going to do something better than Nemesis, we swear.
Well,
and
right.
That's what we're doing.
Nemesis that is paralleling a lot of the themes in Wrath of Khan, including trying to make you feel like you're in a submarine kind of battle.
Right. Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The lifting from other things. And I think that there's been inappropriate liftings, and I can't even put my finger on some of them. But it is obvious that there are audio cues, visual cues that are, hey, remember this? And I'm fine with that when it works. But when it is inappropriately used, I get frustrated with it. Because, again, if this is something that is not a return to form, but the best Trek in years, then this isn't just fan service, but this is clumsy fan service.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. I don't.
There is one part. There is one part that I would address.
But then I don't. And obviously, I think we pointed that out last week. But then to paint the whole 3 episodes with that brush, I think is unfair.
I'm again, like, in terms of, and as we discussed last week, the incorporation of the First Contact theme, which I think is antithetical. And then that happens again with a musical cue that is used because it is an original series musical cue. And I will get to it when I get to it. And it is completely inappropriate for what is being presented on screen. But there are times when I find fan service satisfying, and then when it's clumsy fan service, it's like you're using this wrong, and you own the IP, and you're using it wrong, and that's when I get frustrated. And I thought that was basically what the argument against the stories themselves, not necessarily the corporate conflict, was about when it came to Kurtzman Trek. Was that it was the stories that were betraying Star Trek. But if it's just a matter of corporate and you don't like the new boss, or the old new boss, and you want a newer boss, then I'm looking at the stories and being like, no, these stories are just terrible. And I agree with needing a new boss if these are the ones that they're going to put forward, but I don't even know if anybody can make them anymore. So we'll see. I've been told that episode 4 is the way to go. And that's what will actually hook you on what's going on. But, I'm maybe nitpicking myself out of enjoying something, but from what I understand, what I understand, Star Trek fans do that all the time.
Can you imagine having a show like this during the first 2 seasons of Next Generation? Oh my god! Oh my god! And then everyone after that. I mean, it would be. I mean, we were having those discussions in forums back then, but with our dial-up internet,
right?
But can you imagine right now? It would just, it'd be the same. It would be the same thing. Back then you had your diehard, original series that hated almost all of the new stuff.
There still are people like that,
yeah. And it was, and they would just rip these episodes apart, and for good reason. There were some bad episodes in the first 2 seasons. There's bad episodes in all of those seasons, all 7. But
right.
But you kind of move on and kind of look at them as a whole, and then you look at the series as a whole. And ultimately, I think those series were, 95% awesome.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think
I don't see the parallel exactly, because in TNG we still had a optimistic Federation. So there's the difference here. Is that we're in dystopia now.
No, but that's but that's not really what I was talking about. I'm not talking about the way that you feel about the episode or the series. It's kind of secondary to the fact that there's going to be good episodes and bad episodes. There's going to be people that love some episodes and hate others. That's just the way it's going to go. And especially with this long form storytelling, it's going to be different. It's a different way of looking at these episodes too, because some of them are going to be table setters, some of them are going to kind of be filler. It's just kind of how it goes to prolong or extend the story into this 10 episode movie.
Yeah, I'll admit this is the first time we have a logical progression of storytelling that makes some kind of sense.
Yeah.
Do that.
Like in terms of Kurtzman Trek, this is the best of it, but and again, I in terms of the praise for it for the people who have seen all 10, I may be watching now to find out where the praise is really coming from.
Yeah, and is it praise? Is it just because it's I think you said adequate, but dude, adequate is light years ahead of what we had. I mean, adequate is way above what we got. So is that where the praise is coming from, or does it really get good? I mean, is it really like, oh, this is really good at the end? We'll see. I mean, the jury's still out for me, right?
And if they're trying to hook people in with action and relationship before we get to the good stuff, then that'll be interesting.
For all we know, these first 3 episodes were table setting, and the turbos kicked in 4 through 10. Who knows? I don't know, because I haven't heard anybody break down the whole series yet on purpose. I would stay away from that. Before we jump into the episode, though, we did get really good Star Trek news today. If you don't mind.
Not at all.
So season 5 of Disco will be the last season of Disco.
Yeah,
so
we already knew that.
Celebrate.
Yeah, we did. We knew that back when they had an auction last year of all the stuff.
It being officially announced is nice. No, I can imagine.
Officially announced today.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That's and how. Yes.
Awesome.
I suppose that there were hints in the past, though, eh, Jill?
Yeah, like the auction where the best thing that sold was something from TOS, like it was a pinball machine that was owned by Nimoy.
Oh, that's cool.
That was the coolest thing they had.
Sounds pretty cool, though. I do want to say
I do like the actors. I do like some of the actors in that show, but I just didn't like the show.
Didn't Enterprise only get 4 seasons?
Yes, it did 4 seasons. I know.
Kind of frustrating.
Yeah,
well, ding dong. Mike
especially for
is
somebody
gone.
like me who really liked it. I liked it at the time. Not like a lot of people who go back and now look fondly upon it. I loved it at the time.
Yes, I am a late bloomer.
Excoriated for it in the forums. Like, dude, come on, man, it's good. No, we don't do backwards. Come on, whatever.
That does sound like an internet forum circa 2002.
Totally.
I do want to say hello to the chat. We do have a lot of chat, and thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Don't forget to, the like button, the thumbs up, and such. PvP was the first on the scene, an hour and 15 minutes before we started. But, well, he says, just finished watching season 3, episode 3 of Picard, and have a lot to say. Unfortunately, since it's a closed panel, I'll not contribute. Your great loss, as I have many thoughts on this one. PvP, it is our loss. I hope you do swing back in the chat. I will find out as I scroll down.
There's nothing stopping you from firing up YouTube and telling your thoughts anyways. I think everybody should. It's not a closed off space. The internet's for everybody. And this space needs more voices, not less. So get on YouTube and fire it up. You don't have to have fancy equipment. Just make sure you sound good.
And
I think that's a fabulous idea.
It is. It's a great idea. And PvP does have some positive stuff to say as well. Hello to Lemon. And Jill is here, of course. Matt G giving a big shout out to Jill.
Hi,
And
Maggie.
Daniel's Hot Topics is here, and he says this episode was so good.
I liked it too.
I could see why Daniel likes it.
Steve, do we have a Discord?
We do not.
Okay, I was just checking.
Mainly, the only reason is we do the Phantasmagorium show kind of grew out of a Facebook group. We probably have enough members to where we could. It's just I don't have anybody to monitor the Discord, so I need somebody to monitor it. So I mean, if there's any volunteers, we're happy to have that discussion. But not as we don't have a Discord. So
It's true. It'll just degrade into something you don't want.
I'll just end up showing up drunk all the time and yelling at
people. I mean, I have no problem with that. It's just
okay, good.
Somebody needs to moderate the rest of the rascals.
Daniel goes on to say, I loved it how Worf was interacting with Rufy.
That's a great nickname for her.
That's actually a really good nickname for her. Captain Finity says, getting opinion ready for transplant now, Doctor. Oh, dude, you got 3 of us to choose from, so you can do. Daniel says, I heard that John Delancey filmed scenes for season 3. I wonder what they are. It would be interesting if he came back in a flash. I thought he died.
I heard the opposite. I heard that he wasn't going to be in season 3, but I don't know. Who knows?
I don't know. And PvP is here. Thank you for returning, PvP. Thank you so much. Matt G says, does Bad Robot have the authority to call the Next Generation season 8 if they had wanted to? I don't think so. I don't think that this is the Next Generation season 8.
Not.
Yeah.
So I don't think they have. No, that would have to come from Paramount, I believe. Yeah,
I wouldn't even like to change the name of the production and I don't know. But if there's sort of, some people have said that this is akin to a season. Have people said this is akin to a season 8? I haven't heard that. I've heard that this is the best Trek that we've had in years, and it reminds you of going back.
I've heard, this is the Next Generation reunion, and then several of the original actors, starting with Jonathan Frakes, said, "No, this isn't. It's not a reunion. It's just different. It's just later. Different." So, but it's a reunion. It's a reunion for us, kind of.
Yeah. Oh, and again, I'm not going to abandon ship until I get to see the crew together. I know Data's not around, but we'll see what happens.
No matter what, I like the conversation.
Yeah.
I do think Laura's around.
Yeah, Laura's lurking.
We'll see. We still haven't got the butler from The Nanny, so... Vic Fontaine says, Steve, glad you enjoyed it. I can't follow you on this journey. The first 3 episodes didn't grab me enough to justify a Paramount Plus subscription.
There you go.
We'll be using that money
for a John Wick 4 ticket. Nice. Yeah, John Wick 4 is going to be fabulous.
Solid opinion. Much respect, Victor.
PvP says, Steve just said what I've said for weeks. They don't care if you love it or hate it. We're all here talking about it. Equals they win. Well, I'm not on anybody's side except for my own. I'm just watching Star Trek, so I don't think that they've won because I've decided to do the thing that I've always done, which is watch Star Trek. But if I'm not part of this corporate war,
Scotty. I mean, I think we're talking about in the context of like, who's good? One side thinks they're going to sway their opinion. The other side thinks they're going to sway opinion, and the fans don't get to sway opinion. The only way to sway the opinion of a studio is to stop watching.
Well, but there are also other.
Right.
There, and that's where I was going to jump in, is just in terms of stopping buying. Like, there are how many seasons of Discovery that I don't have on physical media and no intentions of getting. Strange New Worlds, I don't have any intentions of getting. Lower Decks, I don't need. Prodigy, I want to watch, but I'm not going to go buy the discs for it. I'll find it alternatively. And Picard has also, like, as a physical media person, it's not touching my shelf. And so
I wouldn't buy it either.
If you want to count me in your numbers because I didn't buy anything from them, then okay, whatever.
Well, yeah. And when people stop buying and stop watching, then and that's the only way that Secret Hideout's going to get the boot. They never
Right.
will. But that would be the only way if people just decided it wasn't worth watching anymore.
Captain Finity says, I'm delighted to see such a low bar for quality. I am demonstrably a better writer than these knuckleheads. Well, dude, I've never read anything by you, but I'd be happy to compare and contrast given the opportunity. Daniel's Hot Topic says, Scotty, were you shocked when the drughead Worf and Rufy picked up was the drughead who Worf and Rufy picked up was a changeling? Do you think Worf killed the changeling? I wonder, because if you don't see it, it's not dead. Oh no, I have a shot of it. I have a shot of it in the slide. Don't worry about it.
Dead.
Dead.
It is incinerated.
At door now. He's dead. But I did like the changeling thing. That we'll talk about it when we get there, but that was a nice surprise. And I liked it. Not only that, I like that they explain it in the episode too, up front.
Which one? Sorry,
the changeling.
Oh yes,
and the Great Link.
They do explain it, but I don't agree with Starfleet's reasoning. But like you said, we'll get to it.
Well, and we will. We certainly will. I'm trying to. We're not going to go for 3 hours tonight. I promise. Captain Finity says plot holes make it subpar and inadequate. Glaring ones like a hero ship returning, that does do something to get my cockles up. Daniel's Hot Topic says goodbye to Discovery and soon Picard. Hello, Section 31. Oh, please no.
I think they're still going ahead with that show, so we'll see.
PvP says just bam right into a great episode. Even the bad ones didn't F around with table settings. No, but those were episodic. You were referring to something you had said earlier, PvP, in terms of being glad that TOS, here it is, glad TOS didn't have table setting. There was enough exposition to try and get the logic of the situation.
I mean, that's comparing apples to spaceships. Again, you're talking about episodic television as opposed to a stretched out 10 episode movie that's divided into chunks.
But I think
go ahead.
There still is table setting that going on. In terms of, they do introduce Starfleet, the Federation, the Vulcan abilities, and it is table setting, but it is doled out throughout the first season, right. And that is done through episodic, and you would pick that up when you eventually watched it in reruns, but that wasn't seeing as Desilu did pioneer reruns, I'm sure that they had something to do with it, but I think that table setting is a more apt analogy when you're discussing the long form storytelling, because the first couple of episodes do take a little time to ramp up, get everybody to speed, and then you can go off on the story proper, sort of like the first act of a movie. Yes?
Agreed.
Cool. Let's see. PvP, you definitely have a voice. Of course you do. Daniel's Hot Topic says, how did Beverly and Troy get pregnant? They are older. They are old. They're older than the age they can get pregnant. Well, this was like 20 years ago. Troy was like 10 years ago. And also medicine of the 24th century.
Right. And women are having kids after 50 right now. Today. So, in fact,
it makes sense with Riker and Troy trying and using medical technology, but
yeah,
Picard and Beverly were not trying.
It was it was just super uteri. Matt G says, I had to stop watching it. It didn't fit my vision for what I thought it should be. Mm-hmm. Enterprise, that is. It should have been a serious version of Lost in Space.
And I think a lot of fans do that, especially with movies, but it does happen in TV too, where you should, when you go into a movie, you should leave your expectation at the door, right? And don't put don't project what you think something should be onto the screen. Just accept what they're giving you, and then make a decision whether you like it or not. Unfortunately, and it happens to all of us, nobody's special. As fans, we just, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to leave what you think it should be at the door. Your expectation at the door. It's tough.
That's right. I don't accept anything that isn't Star Trek, and this isn't.
Say that again. I'm sorry. I didn't catch it.
Jill?
That's right. I have standards for Star Trek, and I'm going to continue to have them throughout this discussion. And so, yeah, that's what we're doing today when we discuss that.
So, and that's fine. And if it doesn't fit your expectation or your standard, then it doesn't work.
And it'll be fun. I enjoy.
I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not taking what they give you and
well, yeah, if I do end up seeing a good season, then I will see a good season of science fiction, even if I don't believe that it's Star Trek.
Well, and it's kind of funny because Jill and I have been watching these episodes together, and so I've been the one who's saying, "Come on, Jill, let's watch it," and I can almost hear her from here being like, "Oh, I gotta watch this thing again," and
you have to.
And we're enjoying the conversation, but the funniest thing is that usually when we're watching the episode, I'm the first person to say, "What the no." So it is, but then whenever I say, "Oh, I kind of liked that," I'm like, "Oh, I gotta watch this stupid episode." Anyway, Mega Reacts is here. Hey, Mega.
Hi, Mega Reacts.
Thanks for returning. Just dropped my Picard season 3, episode 3 reaction. Weakest episode of the season so far, in my opinion. I'm with you on that one.
I think that's probably right. I think most people. I think I'm the, more of the exception. I think more people would find this as the weakest episode, and I don't think it's as strong as the opening episode either. I did like it.
Yes. Anyway. Mm-hmm. I don't want to think about the other two because we're on task. Meg says Riker talking about moving planets for his child, but in reality he let his son die over a Federation rule. I don't buy it, Riker. Yeah, that's season 1 mythology that we're dealing with on that one. It's nice to see, but I do appreciate what you're saying, Mega.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, yes, yeah. Scogly's here. Hey, Scogly.
Yeah, and I think we touched on that in the first 2 episodes. That it sucks the position that the writers in season 3 are put in by the horrible non-fan writing fucking first.
Yes, and it's yes,
and if you don't get to automatically ignore everything, then it sucks, and then you have to, you're in this impossible position of still having to, pull some of that shitty stuff.
And some of that is still going to get into this season, especially since Scotty pointed out to me the writers of this episode wrote for the previous season.
Who wrote this? Terry didn't write this. I know it was directed by.
Oh no! The ladies who wrote this episode are the same ones who wrote the episode that made Girardi sing.
Oh,
same writers. And I don't want to say ladies, but
that was a strong episode.
There was a musical number.
The musical number was the best. You know what? You're right. The musical number was the best part of that episode.
Yeah, that's the only reason I like that episode is for the musical number. But if you take it into context of the rest of the episode, it doesn't make a sense. How did they know what they were going to play? Did they what? How did what?
No, and I think you and I talked about that episode too, and we on air we said that the only reason they did that was to get Alison Pill in that dress.
Yes. Yeah, and it worked. It worked for me. Nice to see Nemesis of Eden, as Pleasant Valley Picker is pointing out. Okay, over 30 minutes in and no discussion of the episode. 3-hour stream coming up. We got to get our watch time going. But that being said, oh, hey, it's nice to see Commodore Boone here. Hello, Jim, and happy belated, even though I saw you on your birthday and I said that then. Again, I reiterate, happy birthday. And Sci-Fi Nation, greetings to you. Mega Reacts is a fan of Jill, and Captain Finity says Oldsmobiles are in early this year. Anyway, so as we will do PvP, first things first, you're not my real mom, but I appreciate you keeping us on task. Yes, we will discuss the episode. We might as well. We're here. Might as well start like this, because this is how it starts. It's red alert. We are being chased by the Shrike. And we're going through a nebula, still being chased by the great Captain Vadek, played by Amanda Plummer. She doesn't do much this episode, but she is here from time to time.
Still smoking.
Still smoking. It's obviously a very lenient ship. So we have the Crushers. They are in sickbay, and they are offering their skill as doctors. While on the bridge, we have the whole Fandangle coming up against the Nebula, and they are going deeper into it. However, while they are going deeper into it, they are experiencing some electromagnetic and biological pulses that are going through it. But we will get there in a moment. Right now, we have a flashback to sometime shortly after Nemesis, because this is Riker and Picard toasting the birth of Thaddeus, Riker's son, who we all know Riker let die in season 1. I don't think he let him die, but yes, that is what we heard.
Oh, we got to this scene already. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, there's not the intro is just they chase and.
Well, I did have kind of a thing with the beginning, but it was.
Was it on the bridge? Was it in sickbay? Was it in the nebula?
This was just a kind of a nitpick of Shaw's command, where he says that Seven is relieved of duty, but then at the end of the last episode, he said because she helped find Jack that she earned her post back. But in this episode, she's still confined to quarters. It's just
that's a good point. That is a good point, and that is inconsistent.
And that's it. Actually, we can go back to the bar now.
We'll go back to the bar. Well, we might as well.
I need to rewatch that because I don't think he reinstated her.
He does say, "I think you earned your post."
Yeah, he promises it, but maybe we're just supposed to ignore it, and it doesn't matter. Just like
no, I don't think so.
Just like the lesser rating.
I mean, I'll go back because I don't think that's correct, but I'll check it. We'll watch it. Because I think there's wording there. He doesn't make it so. I think there's ambiguity there.
We are in the bar, so I'd like to thank
things. It doesn't matter.
I'd like to say thanks Sci-Fi Nation for the tip. So this is the hairless bald man show Scotty turned me down for. I see how you are, Scotty. That's okay. Nobody's perfect. Love you, bud. Well, thank you so much for the support, Sci-Fi. We do have some intros for future shows that this will help us make more stuff for you guys. So I'm really excited. Thank you, Sci-Fi, for being a part of it. Anytime I don't have to make slides, I'm usually okay for a cheeky quick stream before a show. But thank you so much for the invitation again. But yes, so this is the conversation that Riker and Picard have. I didn't get any close-ups of the de-aging, I don't think. But there is de-aging technology.
Yes.
They have a conversation about.
And it doesn't look bad. It doesn't look bad for a TV budget. I'll tell you that it's not great. I mean, you can, but it's not Tarkin bad.
Well, I think it's pretty bad.
I don't think Riker looked all that bad. I didn't really notice it with Riker, but I don't know why Picard looked younger than Nemesis.
Oh yeah, this is
supposed to be a few years after Nemesis, right?
Yeah, this looked it was very close to X-Men level de-aging, and I was like, too young. And also while I was watching it, I realized that you cannot de-age a man digitally who just exudes old.
You're right.
There are many times through this episode where I was like, Sir Patrick, wake up!
Get ready! You're about to see the same thing happen in Indiana Jones.
Oh well. All right, I guess. Anyway, so Marina Sirtis shows up, and I'd like to say it was Marina Sirtis and not Deanna Troi, because that's exactly what happened. Excuse me for just 1 minute. I don't necessarily need anyone to either see nor.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, he must have.
Well, there you go.
Had a sneezer there.
One of the weird things about this scene is that Troy is talking to Riker, but doesn't seem to realize that Picard exists.
Yes. It is very specific. Not even a hello to Jean-Luc, I don't think. But she is talking about how the baby threw up all over engineering. I don't know how the baby got to engineering.
Well,
Being
security
Marina
is very lax on starships.
and
Projectile vomiting 4 feet in the air.
yes. Well, and I suppose that has something to do with human and betazoid physiological concerns. But yeah, so that is we get Marina Sirtis briefly being Marina Sirtis with nary an echo of Counselor Troy. So thanks, Marina.
Bring the whiskey.
That was great. Bring the whiskey. So meanwhile, back in the nebula, we have Shaw realizing that there are these electromagnetic and biological pulses and says, does anybody have any more weird shit they want to throw at me? We go to 7 of 9's quarters where she has been confined, and she's obviously taking some therapy model building to sort of calm her nerves, where she is visited by Crash LaForge, who says, friendship is special. And I value it. My father valued it. You remember my last name is LaForge. My father, he's Geordie LaForge.
But the exchange is very cool. The exchange was nice.
Yes, it was.
Cool. And it showed it told you a lot about her as a character.
I believe that the writers really kind of messed up with this scene. The line here is, people were fine with me following in his footsteps, but the moment I decided to become a pilot, they believed that there was some kind of nepotism in there. But it seems like the writers of this episode forgot that Geordie was the pilot. He was like one of the best pilots on the ship.
Yep.
So that doesn't fly as a reasoning for people to be prejudiced against her. Not only that, but Starfleet is supposed to be an idyllic organization where the best achieve greatness because of their talent and hard work, and wouldn't be judged based on their family.
But guaranteed, the legend of Geordie LaForge is not that he was a pilot in Starfleet of we're 2025 or wherever the hell we are, the 25th century. I'm sorry. The legend is that he was the best engineer in Starfleet. So that makes perfect sense.
I can understand a long shadow being cast by your engineer father, but being a Starfleet legend should be good enough. And also, if he was the legend, then obviously his early career would have been documented as well. Yeah. So I don't know if it's perfect,
documented, but nobody would remember that he was an ace pilot over the fact that he was known for his engineering.
Yeah, but Starfleet doesn't work on our modern kind of
class structure.
Yeah, class structure. You achieve based on meritocracy. So everything Sydney is saying is not even the way Starfleet Academy works. She should have made it through because she was good enough, and no one, should be viewing her through this lens.
And even
but that doesn't negate the fact that there's people are going to call nepotism when they see it. Of course they do.
I think we're sort of. I don't think they're calling nepotism. I think that Sydney is.
I think that's exactly what she was saying.
Yeah, that is exactly what she was saying.
We're deriding her or thinking that
I thought it was that they were being sort of dismissive of her because she wanted to be a pilot when she should be following engineering, not necessarily that her being in Starfleet had anything to do with the fact that she was just a LaForge. Well, that was not the intention that I got.
The point, absolutely, the point, and my point stands for both. Yeah, good.
I don't. Well, it stands.
Yeah, and if that's the reason, then people shouldn't have a problem with her being a pilot because
but it's
so either way. Then either way, it doesn't make sense that right.
Well, if it's not nepotism, then she doesn't. But her being a pilot. She would have been tracked through. Obviously, she's wearing red and not gold. She went through an operation or a command stream at the academy. And I can understand people saying LaForge, and you're not in engineering and hearing that all the time. But I don't think that would be reason to rebuke and say I didn't fit in around here. I think people in Starfleet would say, "Huh, you're a LaForge and you don't want to." It's like if Demora Sulu was in engineering, and it's like, "Really, you're a Sulu and you're in engineering? Huh, weird." And then it would be like, "Yes, I get it. I hear it all the time," but I don't think it would be I don't fit in. It would just be like a conversational thing, because I don't think that prejudice exists between anyone in Starfleet.
Agreed.
Yeah, but we've seen it. We've seen all kinds of conflict with how the crew acts back and forth in TNG and
but not with
other series. Yeah,
not with a prejudice towards their speciality. I'm talking like Obi-Wan for some reason.
Your speciality.
Yes, Sith masters are our speciality.
There was other kind of class like struggles, so that we saw throughout all the series. So I don't see how that's any different. It doesn't. I mean, it makes sense to me. If you want to nitpick all of this, you can, obviously.
I'm not nitpicking everything. I'm just saying in terms of the character interaction, I don't understand why you would be a part of Starfleet to join a starship and feel that you were out of place just because you were not following in your father's footsteps. I understand how that would be a familial point of conversation, but I don't think it would be a dismissal. Which it hasn't been. She just feels this way,
feels that way. Right.
Which again, it's something in terms
or
of
has been made to feel that way.
Okay. That is then again, I think my point stands in terms of I didn't think that level of prejudice existed between Starfleet
I don't think
officers.
it does. It could just be all in her head and insecurity that has no bearing in reality.
Which, that's why there are ship counselors.
I wonder who it is on this ship.
It's Dr. Oak, I guess.
But that's counter to what you guys just said. So because of what you guys just said,
yes,
there should never be a need for a ship's counselor.
But also, the need for a ship's counselor was a direct result to the cultural zeitgeist at the time in terms of psychology being a emerging and popular science and medicine. And so that's why it was incorporated at the behest of Gene Roddenberry. And so usually with that's my sort of baseline is, did it exist within Roddenberry's vision of the future? And are we extrapolating from that? Which, Jill, I think you do.
Yes.
And I just think that if we are extrapolating from that place, which is what draws a lot of people to Star Trek, then I don't think it's an unfair
Yes, Gene Roddenberry
observation.
wanted to observe what psychology would be like in the 24th century. But
and
very contradictory.
Okay,
to have a meritocracy, and then where all of this prejudice, so-called, it doesn't exist anymore, but we still need counselors because it actually does exist, but we just don't talk about it.
But it's the stress of space flight. If you're taken out of your comfort zone and you do need to rely on someone, it's nice to know that institution does have an outlet for you to be able to access it, like in mental health when you're traveling deep space. Where I think that would be.
Dude, I'm not making it. I'm just making an observation that there's a clear contrast there. It's contradictory in nature. But that doesn't mean it's right or wrong, dude. It's the way they wrote the show. Okay, great. Or Roddenberry's vision of the show, which wasn't 100% great either, Just like I don't think George Lucas's vision was 100% perfect.
Very, very, and in terms of the people who...
I don't doubt that Starfleet was treating her that way. I'm just saying that they shouldn't have, because that's not the way that they would in a real Star Trek show.
So yeah, again, and that's I think where we're having a disconnect is because I'm talking about the way this show is presented, and Jill comes more from a place of where she thinks right, what makes sense to her as Star Wars lore,
Star Trek,
Star Trek lore, and
I don't think it's unreasonable to extrapolate the behaviors of Starfleet crews, like in terms of where we're talking about borders and the interactions and how fleet disbursements go and what is the security of the Federation, I find completely reasonable. How Starfleet crews interact with one another are usually from a basis of understanding and cooperation, and that's something that Starfleet has always been. When they tried to do that in subsequent series after The Next Generation, it was by putting Cisco and all at the edge of the final frontier, interacting with a whole bunch of different cultures and alien species. When they did it on Voyager, it was all about putting the Maquis and the Voyager crew together for a while. It was like that, and then it just became the Aliens of the Week show. But so anyway, I don't think it's unfair. But we're back in. It
was unfair.
Okay,
we are.
We're back on we're back in sick bay, and the Crushers are saying, how can we help? And the doctor says, you're injured, you can't, it'll take too long to explain why, but if you can do anything, please do, basically. And when they walk into sick bay, there is a gentleman who's being treated at triage and looks at Jack and says, this is all your fault, which is also a really great, stiff upper lip Starfleet thing to do when you walk into sick bay, is just start casting blame. But I suppose they have some aspect of this to.
I think that was at the beginning of the episode, but I agree completely. That wouldn't be a thing.
I wouldn't think it would, but again, this is just with the storytelling that we're being presented here, and it does provide for a little bit of character growth with Jack later on.
What is kind of weird here is that Jack is acting like his mother is still injured and fragile, but she's acting like she's completely fine. She doesn't limp or show any signs that she's hurt.
Well, he's definitely a mama's boy.
Yeah.
So, Riker and Baby Daddy show up.
You also missed kind of how the Dr. Oak was kind of rude to.
I think Dr. Oak's in a hurry. Okay, hang on a second. Not everybody is in a Karen mood here.
Well, yeah. No.
In terms of everybody on the starship, I'm not referring to you, but I don't think that everybody's just like, screw you, you don't know what you're doing. I don't think that that's.
Well, there wasn't really too much respect there. Not the kind of respect that LaForge gave Scotty, even though LaForge was on a tight schedule too, and she doesn't even say she's on a tight schedule. She just says it's going to take too long to teach you this stuff.
All the people in the.
But what LaForge said was, "I'd love to explain everything to you, but I need to get this done now." What she says is, "It's going to take too long. I'm just going to do it myself." And so she didn't have the same kind of tact that Geordi did. Is all I'm saying.
True. That's true, but then, well, anyway. So everybody's rude. I don't think that that's necessarily the case, but it is definitely, there is a sense of urgency with lack of tact. I will agree that there is a lack of tact. But either way, Riker and Baby Daddy show up, and Riker takes Jack out into the hall. Beverly says it's okay, and Picard and Beverly have a conversation about the nature of what it would be like for them to have had a kid together. Apparently, they had been in a romantic relationship, then they were ending it for the 5th time about 20 years ago, shortly after Nemesis again. And Beverly got pregnant and then freaked out because, and as they were having their breakup sex, I assume, Beverly discovers that she was pregnant, and Picard gets captured by Romulans for 9 days. She kind of freaks out and says, okay, well, I don't want my son to have a target on his back. You're going to be pursued by the galaxy all the time. It's going to be constant danger, and I don't know if I'll be able to protect my son. I could protect my son, not your son. She lists off all the things that she has lost based on the galaxy, her parents, her husband, Jack, weirdly enough, and Wesley. She says, my son, Wesley. And it's like, Wesley came to pick up the chick from the 21st century. That was good enough to come visit Earth, but I guess
he's not dead. But to Beverly, it sounds like she's saying he's as good as dead.
Which means that Wesley hasn't come back to visit at all.
Right.
Dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
he can't call from his interdimensional.
Go see your mom once in a while.
Dimension.
He totally could. And so Yes, and then Picard is very upset because it's like, don't you think that I have the capacity to change? Don't you think that I would have paid attention? And Beverly starts throwing, you were afraid that you were going to be like your father. And then Picard tries to yell and says, no, you can't condemn me before the fact. And so anyway, they basically come to the conclusion that it was never meant to be. Oh, and Jack was informed of Jean-Luc, but he never chose to visit or pursue a relationship with his biological father.
Yeah, Beverly's choice here to hide this information is completely inexcusable because it wasn't her choice to make. And any Starfleet captain or personnel can become the choice for a criminal's vendetta. So that isn't a good enough excuse to hide the existence of life that you've created together.
Yes. Understood.
Yeah,
And
I don't believe it was a good choice either. It obviously was her choice to make, but it was a bad one.
well, and also it's kind of a weird conclusion to come to after serving on the same ship with him for 6 years at least.
It does make sense. For all that time, he's basically always been a target. So what she was saying wasn't wrong. It was just a wrong way to. It was a wrong reaction to that. I mean, look. If people know Beverly too. I mean, if they knew she had a son, maybe not as big a target, but a target nonetheless, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
So I did like this scene. I thought the scene was done fairly well and
well acted, sure.
Back and forth. So
yeah. Oh, in terms of the performances, I don't have aside from the obvious punchlines of elder abuse, with Sir Patrick Stewart. Aside from that, the performances are decent, and they even get some good Sir Patrick Stewart. I am recognizing Sir Patrick Stewart as being Picard from time to time.
Yeah, flashes of it, right? Little flashes in there.
And it's nice to see Gates McFadden doing Crusher from time to time, but again, it all just seems, I don't know. Everybody's being very antagonistic to one another. Obviously, that's what's going to happen when you get the band back together. It happened in Star Trek: The Motion Picture to a certain extent with the original series.
Everyone is 900 years old now, too. So
yes.
What did I miss? Oh man. Oh, okay. So there was one thing I wanted to say about this. I don't know if you said it already, but you did say the part where the only line I like in this whole scene is, "You don't get to condemn people before the fact." Yeah. She doesn't really know that he wouldn't have settled down for family, because everybody seems to be under the impression that Picard has no idea what it's like to be a father, but nobody considers what happened in the Inner Light to matter. And how that changed the way he viewed children.
I mean, I guess in a way you could say that they didn't understand it. Obviously, he understood it and he told everybody, but it's not the same as witnessing it, right? So that maybe that's their perception of that. So they kind of dismiss that. Whereas I think that informs how good a father he would be, right? But
I just wanted to say hi to Edge of Time. Hey, Space Madness.
Space Madness.
Yeah, he was a pretty good father in that episode.
I thought so too. So that was a good pull there, Jill. I like that. But yeah, it's weird that everybody around him seems to think he's not cut out or didn't want to be a father.
Right, and throwing his
really good father in Inner Light.
Well, and also considering the joy that he had when he was in the Nexus and had his own children.
So, well, yeah, again, that's two different, families that he's had.
Yeah, that was a really interesting insight on him. That's what he would decide to do in the Nexus.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that his wife at the time in the Nexus was not Beverly.
Right.
Weird. Anyway, outside of sickbay, we have Riker and Jack. Jack is pacing. And Riker is starting.
I'm sorry to interrupt there, Scotty. This
is
one of my favorite scenes. This is one of my favorite scenes, just because watching Jonathan Frakes act this scene was awesome. It's fun, and you could tell, that he's just that old. He's the old man, and the young kids bouncing around. He's the old experienced dude, and The scene was really good.
Yeah, I thought Jonathan Frakes is absolutely charming in this, and I don't know the name of the actor who plays Jack Crusher, but I think that he's like, again, I find him to be a likable actor. He's a good presence, and these two together are good. And they start talking about the resemblance between Jack and Jean-Luc, and he's like, "No, don't do that." And it's like, "Well, he's your dad." It's like, "No, he's not. He's not dad." And then he goes in to say that sometimes Beverly likes to would start to tell stories about the good old days on the Enterprise, and then would get a light in her eye, and then she would get sad and stop. And it's like, okay. So I don't know why, but I don't know. Is the reason that she cut off ties with the Enterprise crew, or are we just like until we find out more
They still haven't
information?
said.
Sorry,
We still don't know. They still have given absolutely nothing except for that Starfleet is bad and they were ignoring these planets.
oh, that is a thing that was said. Is
Yeah, they did say
that yes, Beverly does say we were helping the planets that Starfleet forgot, and that also, just going back to what I like about Star Trek, is Starfleet is an organization, being an altruistic organization and being highly organized as an organization would be, to try and take care of the worlds that are members of the Federation. If they were worlds that were outside of the Federation, then yes, they don't get the support of the Federation.
Well,
but
as your empire grows, whether you call it a federation and you're altruistic and nice or not, it's harder and harder to focus all of your energy everywhere, right? Ask the Greeks and the Romans about that. So I think what happened, it sounded to me, this is my inference, is that
Sure.
there were some Federation planets, maybe not a lot, but a few that were being maybe not ignored on purpose, but didn't get the amount of attention that maybe some other members were.
And if she was some random doctor who had no ties to Starfleet, this would make a lot of sense to me. But if you have the chief medical officer of what used to be the flagship of the Federation say, "Hey, can you come help us?" I do believe that Starfleet would.
I do too, except like we've been saying for the last 2 episodes, we don't know exactly what the state of affairs are with the Federation. It's obviously not the same as it was pre-Dominion War. It's obviously, not. It's just not the same.
Yeah, but we don't know how.
But we don't know. Yeah, we don't know any of the particulars yet.
Details, yeah.
So, I mean, that could inform that as well. So, maybe there was, maybe she did scream to, all the way up the chain of command, and they just didn't either have the resources, time, money, or, well, not money, obviously, but time or resources to help. And she decided, well, then I'll do it myself.
And I know you guys
don't
agree with this, but I see lots of digs that Terry does at the Next Generation. Like here in this scene, he says, Jack says, "Let's just say that in my time on this universe, I've always found one thing to be true. The bigger the legend, the more disappointing the reality." So that's kind of like another way to say to never meet your heroes, but kind of in a more empty way, just to say that, the Next Generation was very good. But that's just my reading.
I do want to just check in with the chat briefly before we move forward, and we might as well do it on the glowing visage of Jonathan Frakes. Mega React says, "The Nebula is a changeling. What a twist."
What a twist indeed.
I was thinking about that being a possibility. It's interesting. I don't know.
It wouldn't surprise me. The vastness. I don't know that. Maybe it's mini changeling, plural. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely too much mass to be just.
Just the vastness of space. Is it too much mass to be one changeling?
Is this the Splinter Link?
Is it? Yeah. Is it that split? Yeah. The whole. Yeah.
Is it Mephisto?
It might be Mephisto.
It might be Mephisto. PvP says, enjoyed the flashback, although Picard getting tipsy seems odd as he's a machine. Well, again, flashback, so it would have been before
pre-machine, right?
Before being turned into a machine. Nemesis of Eden says, I really enjoyed most of this episode.
Me
Fantastic. Too. Yeah. And that's, if it sounds like, your parents fighting in the front seat of a car, it's not what we're trying to do. Just bringing different perspectives to it. So Nemesis of Eden says, wait, are you saying I look ancient and weird, Scotty? Never, Nemesis. I never said that, nor would I think it. No. And Edge of Time says, what I really need is a droid that understands the binary language of moisture evaporators. Yes. Actually, no, 3PO didn't say that, but anyway. Sci-Fi Nation says justified and ancient, which is, I think is that KLF?
KLF.
Yeah, KLF. It's great.
What we actually need is a universal translator that can translate the Captain Baddock's XO that's just clicking and making noises.
I'm fine with her being fluent in clicking. Matt G has a big laugh on his face, and Pleasant Valley Picker says, Marina finally said something sensible. Bring the whiskey. Of course, Riker didn't.
Yeah. Well, he might have.
And Mega says, preach, Jill. And Commodore Boone says, yep, LaForge is the best engineer in Starfleet history. Oh, wow. That, I think we've had conversations about it before. I don't know.
I don't know. That's not something I want to debate here. But.
Right. But it's an interesting conversation for another time, just because, like the best engineer of all, like, oh, yeah, I'm a big fan of Trip. Come on.
And Scotty.
And here, where we go. All right. I'm gonna
Scotty R37's favorite is O'Brien.
Is O'Brien. It's true. He's just more versatile. Anyway, I'll put a pin in it there and we can continue on because it's starting to look like Riker's falling in love with me. So anyway, this is where Picard says, do you know why they're after us? And it's like, I don't even think we were jumped by Fenris Rangers, boarded by Klingons. We went to Starfleet and they tried to take him. And it's like, okay, well, what do you think? What is it about him? And she's like, I don't think it's anything to do with him. I think it's about you. That's why I called you. I can only trust you. And so they go outside. That's the back of Picard's head right there. You can tell by the knot hair. And walks out, doesn't really acknowledge Jack, goes with Riker. Riker says, so what's the deal? And Picard says, it's immaterial. And Riker starts saying, but that's your son. You should treasure every moment, because we've already established the Thaddeus connection to this episode and the 17 seconds, which is how long it took for Riker to get from the bridge to sickbay when Thaddeus was being born. And
longest 17 seconds of his life.
And that is when he became a father. And so, yep. So they talk.
I like that part.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. No, I like that. I like that writing. Like that scene was good in terms of being able to see them toasting the birth of Riker's son. I thought that was a nice scene.
Well, it does have a basis in reality for parenthood, because when your kid is in danger after they're born, it feels like those 10 seconds feel like 20 minutes.
I am not a father. Happy not a Father's Day to me. But so I don't know those feelings yet. And yet I can empathize with the possibility of the situation and what is being presented in the art.
Absolutely.
So anyway, they get back to the bridge and everything goes pew, pew, pew. While the Shrike should not be able to track the Titan in the nebula, it can. And so they start going pew, 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 pew.
Wait, did you mention the part where Beverly says they're not after Jack, but they're after Picard instead?
Yeah.
I think I said that, yeah. I think
okay, so in that same scene, they also explain away, they lampshade his accent, his British accent. They say he went to a school in London.
Yeah.
That was it.
And I did hear a review today that they were talking, and this is something that I hadn't heard before in terms of a storytelling mechanic. I had heard of lampshading, something that the audience is aware of, but we don't necessarily have to draw too much attention to it, so we lampshade a plot point. That's what my understanding of it was. With this series, it has been, whether it is a different enough storytelling mechanic, I don't know, but they've been calling it hanging a lantern on it. Whereas we'll draw attention to it for a moment and then say, okay, we can move on. It
It's the same
seems
thing.
like the same thing, but I know that lampshading seems to have more of a negative connotation, and so I don't know if people are saying, "Oh no, we're not lampshading this; we're hanging a lantern on it," because that sounds better.
I think that's a distinction without a difference, and I also think that that's been done since the beginning of storytelling, since the beginning of time.
Oh, for sure.
So it's not unique to this series or this season, by the way. Or this IP.
No, not at all. Nope, I agree with you 1,000%.
Absolutely.
Yep. But again, the trope exists for a reason, and so identifying or renaming the trope is just an interesting thing that I saw in a
review. I will tell
review.
you this: I don't. They're doing it. I think we're getting it more in these first 3 episodes of season 3 than we got it in the first 2 seasons. They were very bad at explaining holes.
Yeah, they didn't even bother.
Apparent holes, right? Now, look, I don't think this is going to be the best writing in the of all time. Obviously, it's just a guy writing a show, or several people writing a show. But it seems to me they're taking some time to try to explain why, or what, or how, or who. Where in the previous seasons they kind of just, who cares, muscle through, get to the end, and get our paychecks and go home.
Well, and in terms of the hanging of the lantern, he says, "That's your father," and it's like, I heard he was positronic, and it's like, well, he's still the same man, and so and that is we're taking the word of Riker, which is, if that's that there are worse authorities to take it from. It's just an interesting thing that obviously we're just moving on with it. Like, there's not going to be much more than lip service to it. There's not going to be a discussion on the nature of transitioning your consciousness from a biological body to a mechanical one. There's not.
That would be interesting.
Which has been done on Star Trek before, and it would be interesting to see what that was like. But no, it's not and they've had 3 seasons, and they're not going to do it. If they weren't going to do it in season 2, they certainly aren't going to circle back to it now.
Man, and that's got to be one of the things. I think if you ask Terry Matalas right now, what's one thing you wish you didn't have to bring into this season, and I think it would be that Picard,
right.
Yeah, because if he could have, I kept thinking actually during this episode more than ever, more than the previous 2, I should say, that, man, I wish this series had started this way.
Yeah, with
these first 3, without having any of that baggage of the first 2 seasons.
Yes,
because I think it would have been way better. Series overall.
Yes. Well, and I think it would have been a little bit more forgiving if it was a story of Picard traveling through the Star Trek universe to reunite or meet for the first time other characters throughout the Berman era of Star Trek. Then that could have been interesting, but we have what we have, and now
it is what it is.
Yeah. So the season that could have been anyway. Pew pew pew. And Captain Shaw is badly hurt. Points at Riker and says, "You got us into this. You get us out. You take command," and then does the authorization code to transfer command to Riker. And Patrick Stewart is there. Actually, no, they're trying to figure out a strategy, and it seems to be one of evasion and defense. And that is the plan. First things first, there is, and I couldn't get a good shot of it, but there is a cool little maneuver that Riker does. He launches a photon torpedo, and then halfway between the Titan and the Shrike, he ignites it destroys it with the phasers, which causes a shockwave, which blows everybody askew, leading to the escape. And this is where Riker and Picard have their conversation in regards to, do we fight, which is oddly enough Picard's standpoint, or do we run, which is Riker's. Riker being very specific about the fact that the Shrike outguns them, and that the Titan is not the Enterprise. But throughout the process, Picard, this is the part, this lovely half smile is, I think it's about time you started calling me number one, which at first I was like, no. And then it warmed for me immediately. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
So,
and that was the thing that I had a problem with for Captain Baddock of the Shrike, she's all over the map in terms of how she chooses to engage. In the last episode, it was very clearly and visually established that she was hunting and stalking Beverly and Jack very carefully without actually trying to destroy them. So they were in a derelict ship that she could have easily destroyed at any moment and could have taken down the Titan in the last episode as well. So which the characters in the last episode allude to. However, she doesn't, and the only logical conclusion from this is that she didn't want to harm Jack Crusher for some reason. But forget about all that in this episode. None of that matters now, because in this episode she's just fine with the destruction of the Titan. So
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I do disagree. First of all, that was our projection about Jack and Beverly. They didn't actually say that in the show. That was just kind of, our interpretation, or some people's interpretation. So, but it was you're right. It was obviously established that she could have easily ended either one of these ships anytime she wanted to. But in this episode, I didn't see any time where they put, with all the firepower that's on that ship, that she actually wanted to destroy anything. In fact, it's pretty minor damage compared to what that ship can do. And then after the initial volley, I think they only volleyed one or two of their own weapons at the Titan. After that, it was the Titan's own weapons that were hitting them through that portal gun. So, I think she's just still playing with her food.
I do think she's playing with her food, but also she establishes the name of the ship is the Shrike because it is something that's going to peck away until you are helpless. And then Picard even says her strategy is just to keep pecking away at us until we surrender. And ultimately, we're still in a basis where if they were to beam over Jack, then all is said and done.
So you have a good argument for that if she's the one doling out the punishment in terms of her firing from her ship methodically and surgically, as she says. But that doesn't work whenever she uses the portal gun to have the Titan fire upon itself, because she doesn't know what the complement of their weaponry is and whether it would have destroyed itself or not.
Well, she only uses the portal gun to reroute the torpedoes once at the end of the episode. It's mostly just to keep them within the nebula the two other times that they do it with the portal gun. But either way,
but it is well, all right.
I do think that she's still pecking away until the ship is helpless, and then they may board. They may any of the things to try and get Jack or Picard.
Jill brought up her last thought there, kind of brought something to my mind. Wait a minute, Beverly doesn't think they're after Jack; they're after Jean-Luc.
Yeah,
but she specifically says, "Give us Jack, or give me Jack, and you can be on your way."
Right.
Which I don't know if anybody believed that. Anyways, you give them Jack, and you should just demolish the ship, blow up the ship.
That's true. And again, this is one of the advantages of the mystery box as we move forward. Yeah, right. These shifting goalposts are going to find out maybe Vadic wasn't telling the truth, but she seems so trustworthy.
Yeah.
Anyway, Riker is beaming. Meanwhile, back with a ship that shouldn't exist on a planet called Showrunner. Worf is doing his calisthenics after having rescued Rufy from the guy with the ears, the Ferengi named Sneed. Raffi.
Small lobes.
He had small lobes. That is very true. Raffi sneaks up. Worf disarms her and says, if I'm not mistaken, he says, I am Worf, son of Moog, house of Martox, son of Sergei, house of Roshenko, bane of the house of Duras, and slayer of Gowron.
Yes.
I have made some chamomile tea. Do you take sugar? Which I really would have loved that line if they had left off the tea. But I liked it, and then I was like, okay, the tea. Oh, also, he's listening to Berlioz, the same piece of opera from Star Trek First Contact, which is a nerd reference. It is a jangly key. It is definitely fan service that I don't think fits. And I think it's just there so people will say, remember that time that Picard was listening to opera? Well, Worf is listening to the same opera. And it's like, yes, I know. Thank you. Thank you very much. No more breadsticks. Thank you. So we get to find out that Titus Ricca is the man who lied about the Romulan, or was the one who paid the Ferengi to lie about the Romulan. And Worf says, being revealed as Rufy's handler. I'm just going to keep calling him Rufy. We're calling her Rufy. Thank you. I appreciate that. And says, let's go find him. So Raffi looks into a trailer moment and says, cool. And we move on to back to the Titan, where Riker is saying, no, you don't understand. We don't have the firepower. Why are you so horny for a fight right now, old man? Is essentially how this goes. We can't hide forever. We can't. What do? We have to go punch them in the face. Don't you remember? No, we don't have the firepower. I don't know. What is wrong? So they're having this argument where Riker is actually relatively in the right, I would think.
I don't.
Yes.
No, I don't think so. But I don't.
Well,
know.
it worked really well, as we'll find out.
Well, right.
Well, even if they did succeed at striking the first blow, which when we get there, we will get there. I still think that the Shrike outguns, as Shaw said in the last episode, as Riker says in this episode. And even as they are on their way to their engagement in battle, Riker flat out says, which is something I don't think you should say on the bridge of your starship, when someone says, let's go fight them, and then Riker yells back, we will lose.
Right. Yeah.
Which doesn't necessarily inspire confidence. I don't know. Anyway, back in sickbay, Jack is ingratiating himself to the crew by being nice to them. So he's being nice now. And Shaw is there, and he is suffering from internal bleeding, and Dr. Crusher is not necessarily as much of a under the direction of the computer system. She can recognize things without needing the imaging. And as they are treating Shaw, he says, how can they keep finding us? And we are referred to a puddle of blood, which reminds Jack of something.
Dun, dun.
So he tries to go to the bridge to tell them what is going on, and the security guard the security officer who is posted at the turbo lift to the bridge says, we're at red alert, turn around. He does. So anyway, back in the nebula, flying around. The Shrike is there. It fires the portal gun. The portal gun opens right in front of the ship, at which point it goes into the portal and comes out the other side further back into the nebula. And the Shrike is there, ready to do what the Shrike does best. The device is armed and ready at your command. And so Riker does the exact same thing again in the exact same location at this time of year, isolated completely in your kitchen again. And it doesn't work twice. We're right back in front of the Shrike. And so Riker says, let's go back into the nebula. Meanwhile, back at Showrunner Prime, we are walking through the set of Blade Runner, and Worf is looking from the distance and saying, we have to go and find Titus. And Raffi says, yes, we should. Worf sees him. He's running through the market that Zora ran through in Blade Runner. Raffi is chasing. They fight. They chase. And then Worf does a what is
power slam.
A power slam, yeah, like a choke slam, and Worf is all badass. Yay, he didn't cut his head off because he needs information. And so Raffi and Worf are there, and they have Titus, which is exactly what we wanted to do. You know, set up, resolution. We all got it in the same episode. I'm happy as a clam. So, meanwhile, back in the Nebula, we're fighting, and still being pursued by the Shrike. Jack goes to find the only other person who he has access to in terms of the senior crew, 7 of 9, and says, "You were a Fenris Ranger. You remember blood in the water, the easiest thing. How do you think that they're tracking the ship?" And so they figure it out through the something that would be part of the warp drive. It is leaking, and so they are being pursued by the Shrike through a gas leak, which is somewhat of a reference to Star Trek VI in terms of being able to find the cloaked bird of prey. Things got to have a tailpipe. But this is the result of, as we will discover. Oh, right. So anyway, they both decide that they need to go and find out whether or not there is a leak on the ship or where the leak is so that they can stop the leak. But there is a security officer standing guard saying, "You are still confined to quarters," which brings us back to Jill's point. I thought he was. She wasn't. I thought Shaw said that was cool, but apparently not. So Jack, as you do, punches him out instead of using the comm badge on 7 of 9's chest and saying, "Captain, we have some new information in regards to how we're being tracked by the Shrike. Would you like to hear that?" "No, let's punch a guy. That is more exciting." So they go to find out where the leak is.
We'll punch the guy now, and then we'll say that exact line in 2 minutes.
Yes. So we exactly. They could have anyway. So they get to the engineering place to find out where the leak is. They're wearing their masks because it's poisonous gas and it's dangerous. They're both wearing their masks, and then they see that there is holes in the piping, which is the gas escaping, which is causing the leak. The compartments have been flooded. 7 is going to go and deal with that. Meanwhile, she communicates with the bridge and says, "Jack found out what's going on. We're just taking care of why we're being tracked." And so that makes Picard say, "Oh, this is perfect. So once we plug the leak, we have a saboteur. But once sabotage. Once we find the leak, we can use that to our advantage because the Shrike will know where the Shrike is, but the Shrike won't know where we are, so we can swing up behind them, and they'll be dead to rights, Will. It's the chicken and the egg, Will. It's the chicken and the egg." This entire thing is reminding me of old Riker from the future in All Good Things. And this dynamic is odd, in my opinion. In terms of being willing to go commandeer a ship, go save Beverly, go do all of the things, and now that we're actually in a combat situation, somebody's gumption has waned or has been adequately persuaded by Shaw that the lives of the crew and the ship certainly deserve more credence than destroying the Shrike. So they're still talking and arguing about it, and it looks like Picard pooped himself. And Riker says, "Sorry about that. That was just me being rude." And well, he does a little. Oops.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Very likely.
I was happy, but
Tavine also says that they're getting pulled into a gravity well.
Yes, the Terese, I believe, is the name of the Vulcan science officer.
Tavine.
I'm sorry?
Tavine? Isn't her name Tavine?
Oh, it's Tavine. You're right. Not Terese. Tavine. You're correct. Thank you. Yeah. And so Tavine says we're being pulled into the gravity well. Riker says, well, this is when he says we are going to lose. But so someone comes in while Jack is waiting for a signal from 7, punches him in the face, and his face goes all goobly. Yes, is that the word? Goobly?
It is today.
And so, but it doesn't matter because he's super strong. He fights back and he just gets Jack on the floor without his mask on, punched in the gut, gasping for air, and thusly ingesting Oh, the poisonous gas. So anyway,
that's the part in the show where I said, "No, changelings."
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's the point where Scotty realized it too.
yes, and I was just like, yay, changelings.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I'm fine with it.
Well, yeah.
I'm fine with the introduction of changelings. Jill, how do you feel about the introduction of changelings?
Well, there's more context to it in a few moments. So
There is. So we'll wait until then. But
Yeah.
anyway, Jack is having a tummy ache in the middle of the gas cloud, and he's upset. Meanwhile, back on Showrunner Prime, Titus is being interrogated by Raffi, who is being very bad cop, but
Yes.
Worf is being very good cop. Things like, we'll take your fingernails, and you just very aggressive interrogation style, whatever.
Yeah, because Starfleet is now adopting Cardassian interrogation techniques.
Well, and I think that it is still a human good cop, bad cop situation, because that is what Worf is interceding so that the prisoner feels more comfortable and says, you will be able to keep your fingernails.
I really
And-
hope that everything that Worf is saying is just his good cop routine and not really anything that he actually believes, because there are lots of really terrible lines that make no sense.
Yes, this is very heavy. Is it heavy-handed? Is it modern vernacular? I don't know how I feel about the dialogue, but I get the sense that this is lies.
Yes. Well, it's an interrogation technique, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But he says
That's the way it landed for me anyway.
Yeah, there is no grand cause. You believe in the fight. There is no good. There is no evil. But I was once like you, angry and violent and yada yadas.
Yeah,
Anyway.
right. Well, when he says a fight is really worth dying for, that's a far cry from his true belief as today is a good day to die.
Yeah. So considering that Titus is he's a pothead, he's a space pothead. Considering that Raffi offers the retinol marijuana, and this is the part where they play a musical cue from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, where it is Kirk having a conversation about taking back the Enterprise, taking command of the Enterprise to find out what's going on in Regular One. This has no place in this scene. It is a callback to something from a previous movie that has no business being in this, because it's basically a light flute that was representative of the easygoing relationship between Kirk and Spock, and here it is being used as a representation of the joys of getting high. I know that's a nitpick and quite a deep cut for a lot of people, and if it doesn't bother you, I'm not offended, but I thought that this was like, yeah, I appreciate your jangly key, and it's not proper. You shouldn't wear the funny hat to church. I don't like this at all. But it doesn't matter, because Titus is having his he's got his angry face on, so everyone thinks that he's, what's it called, overdosing. I'm going to leave withdrawing, not overdosing, the opposite of that.
The DTs.
I am going to jump back into the chat. Thank you guys for sticking around. Also, I wanted to mention that this actor here was actually in Star Trek Generations as one of Picard's Nexus kids.
Really?
Yeah. Cool. Just a neat little thing. Anyway, Captain Finity says it would be like Scotty tending bar instead of Guinan. If you're referring to Montgomery, Scott, I think that would be good. If you're referring to me, I think that would be good too. Mm-hmm. Vic Fontaine says agreed. Just rolled my eyes at the Seven and LaForge scene. I did. I think Sydney is adorable, but it just seemed like a soft touching moment in the middle. It's almost like the entire interactions that happened with the crew were based on the convenience of, we're not going to fight right now. We're not going to have a space battle right now, but when we're done with the emotional talking, we will get back to the space battle. I don't know. There was something. And Sci-Fi is correct. She crashed 2 shuttles and was known as Crash LaForge.
There's definitely a heavy emphasis on the drama in this series versus the science fiction. Makes sense.
Absolutely. And yes. PvP says an unnecessary scene padding. No, I think it's developing Sydney more, but if it again, it's if you don't dig it, then I can understand. I didn't think it was padding. I rolled my eyes at it, but I
think there's definitely padding, and there's going to be more. But I mean, I can say that for every streaming show that's 8 to 10 episodes, like this, and has been for the last 5 or 6 years. They all have that. It's kind of a necessity in order to kind of space out these episodes to be the length that they need, and the amount of episodes needed or ordered.
Yeah, and that's the inherent weakness in putting only one story in the entire season, is that you have to stretch stuff out.
Yeah, you can. Yes, you can absolutely view it like that. There's a ton of weaknesses in the episodic, procedurals too. But I hear you.
Well, and this is a 2-part. This is a back and forth in the chat, so don't think that I'm setting you up for failure, buddy. But Pleasant Valley Picker says, nitpick. When Steve has an opinion, it's right. When we have an opposing point, we are nitpicking. And Vic Fontaine says, I can appreciate Steve trying to dig out the good among all the meh. Yes. Yeah. And I think that's where the situation is. Like, whether you're on one side of if you like it or if you dislike it, I think that there are people who are either going to say this is bad because, or this is good because, and it's just part of the conversation. It's not that anyone's wrong or right.
I don't have a lot of time to spend hating shit, so I just don't. If I dislike something, you'll definitely tell you. I'd rather focus on the stuff I like.
Fair, yeah. Well, yeah. No, I know, and the thing is, and I don't like, and I've subscribed to that theory myself. But when it does come to Star Trek, I'm going to watch the Star Trek, and if there are things that I find that they do that are sort of off-brand, offside, and not with the feel of the show that I've seen before, like it still has Star Trek on it, and it should adhere to the cornerstones of Star Trek, and so. Like, I will point them out, and I don't think it's necessarily nitpicking. And when you say, no, it's good in terms of storytelling, I can agree with that as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do think there's a difference between liking, not liking, and really diving deep into picking that shit out of Pepper. If you spend the entire episode picking that shit out of Pepper, I think you miss the whole idea of the entertainment that's in front of you.
If there is insect feces in my pepper, I'm just going to throw the entire pepper away.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, and I absolutely accept if you're just going to pick nits the entire time, then you're just sort of, you're poking hole. You're being a Shrike. You're just poking holes into it until it surrenders or something.
Oh, I don't think that's what I'm doing.
No, I don't think that's what you're doing either. And I think that they're
of every once in a while picking that shit out of Pepper and then making it a focal point of why he doesn't like something.
No, but what I'm saying is that if the hero ship of the first 2 seasons of your television show inexplicably returns without explanation or rationale, then that's not picking that shit out of Pepper. That's
no. And
that's putting a turd in a pepper mill and saying everything is fine.
And I agreed with you.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm just saying that if we're going with table setting in terms of how they are adhering to the canon of their own show, in terms of the storytelling of their own show, and being beholden to certain concepts that they are saddled with, I think that if there is something as big as a hole in the side of the barn, and it's right. Like, I don't understand why rain is getting in here, then that's glossing over everything.
I agree. I agree with that. I don't think that a soft musical cue is cause for alarm.
It is for me, especially if it's a character defining scene.
I get it is for you, but
right?
That's why we have these conversations. That's why you're having
for sure. I'm not. I'm not planting my flag in terms of saying.
That's another thing about this episode is that the modern music is finally not bothering Scotty because they just keep hammering him with it in every episode.
But I didn't write it down this time, so I don't know what the rock song was at the beginning of the episode. Let's see. And PvP says that PvP's rubbing wrong. Or is being rubbed wrong. That's not the issue. I actually enjoyed parts of this episode. It's that he puts others' opposing views down in a condescending manner. I don't find you condescending, Steve. And but yeah, look for
who am I putting down? That's your problem. If you're taking what I say personally, that's a you issue, not a me issue.
Well, you know, I do appreciate when PvP's here, and if I'm looking forward to his contributions. So we may not
have a thing to say. I say it, so it's all good. We're good.
Mega React says Jill gets it. The scene was trash and goes against the entire idea of Starfleet. I thought, in regards to the way that Starfleet
goes against the entire idea of Starfleet that pre-Dominion War that we knew. Yes, absolutely, but it may not go against the entire idea of Starfleet now.
But I don't think that just because of the Dominion War that Starfleet officers gave up on civility, tact, and cooperation.
I don't think so either. But I think, but views and outlook and morale changes as time changes. Somebody who spent his younger youth in the Marine Corps, I saw it during war and then after war. There's a difference. There's a difference in your command structure, the way and the morale that comes down. So it can inform what's happening now. Do the core tenets even matter anymore? We think they do. It looks like they do because Shaw seems to still hold on to those. So we think we know what's happening, but we haven't been told enough about the interceding years between the Dominion War and what's going on now to really know what to stick. And that's going to be a sticking point for me. If they don't explain that by the end of episode 10, that's going to color the way I look at this entire season, because I don't think we've been given an accurate or any kind of real account of kind of the state of the state. And
even with the state of the state, which we've agreed upon in previous episodes, I think that there are still things that are supposed to be constant under the brand of Star Trek and Starfleet being
fundamental, right?
Yeah, it is. It is its core to what Star Trek is, and the altruistic nature and the cooperative nature of Starfleet is one of those things. And if you are going to ignore that, then, as Jill has been saying for quite a while, for at least 3 episodes, and certainly before that, when it comes to the filth, it's not Star Trek. If you go to see a rock band and no one has an electric guitar, then enjoy your piano recital. It's not a rock band.
It's Jethro Tull winning Best Metal Band at the Grammys.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, I just wanted to say hello to Ashley Lynn Gaia Storm. Thank you for hanging out here. I know that you do not dig on the nerd shit, but it's a pleasure to see you in the chat. Thanks for being here, lady. I am going to put a pin and we'll be back. I promise, but this guy's face is freaking me out. So anyway, Crusher is, he's having an asthma attack because of all the gases, and has a bit of a vision. 7 of 9 is coming in to rescue him, and there is something going on. He's having a vision. There are branches showing up behind 7, and she says, "Connect to the branches, Jack." And he has a flash of a couple of images. One looked like a cloudy image of Cardassia being destroyed, but I didn't include it because it was just you couldn't make it out. But he does get an image of a door. It's a black door that opens. This is it just through the crack. Is
that just his hallucination, or what's going on with that? That's
no idea yet.
Don't know yet. So I was wondering, is it just kind of the fever dream near death vision, or is this some kind of real vision that may? Well, we'll have to see, right? We'll have to see.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that it's some sort of vision. Modern Trek or new Trek, Kurtzman Trek, the filth seems to really enjoy when people have visions of something or other.
Mystery box.
Not even mystery box, but like psychic mystery box. But again, with the long form storytelling, we'll see as it goes. And apparently, it does pay off eventually, and that was something that I saw on Dave Cullen's review. Again, that's the only other review that I watched today, and I don't want to be cribbing too much from him. But he said, "And if only I could tell you what's behind that door," and I was like, "All right."
So
Yeah.
it's interesting. In Terry Metalis' other show that I loved called 12 Monkeys, there was a lot of that too. A lot of that kind of
Psychic.
Well, yeah, like vision forecasting, future events.
Yeah, but I can buy it in a time travel story.
Yeah, right. That may or may not come true, right? It was amazing, but it doesn't shock me that it's in here too. That we have some of this.
All right. So anyway, 7 brings Jack to the sick bay, and Picard gets into the turbo lift and experiences his very own 17 seconds. He
Look
thought
at what
he
they
was
did there. How clever.
I know. It was like there was foreshadowing, and then they did it, and wow. Anyway, Jack Crusher dies again. See? He's dead. We're done. Wait a second.
Oh.
Not so fast.
Wake up. Wake up. And he's so relieved. Look at him. He's so relieved. And she's so happy she could cry. Anyway, Jack Crusher didn't die. Meanwhile, back on which I'll tell you right now, don't do this as a television show. Don't do it. Especially not this one. This was bad. This was very bad. Do not make it so that he is in danger so that we can waste precious screen time on you not dying. If you are going to kill a character, kill a character. Don't make it so they almost die. Make it so that they almost die in some sort of sacrifice. He got mugged in engineering, breathed in some stuff. We thought he was going to die. And then just to see the reaction of Crusher and Picard about the possibility of losing their son, that is what this is for. And then he comes back to life so that we can reaffirm that Picard would be okay with being a father. Good for you.
Exactly. That it just wants to mirror whatever happened to Riker.
Yep. And I thought it was, if you're introducing this character that could possibly die. Now I don't feel any danger for Jack Crusher, although he could die. I don't know, but you've already tried to kill him once, so, and it didn't stick. I found this bad. I didn't like it.
But it's a trope that's used in almost every TV series that goes past a couple seasons.
That's fine. They use steam tables in a lot of Holiday Inns. That doesn't necessarily mean that I have to buy the buffet.
I didn't say you did. I
agree.
Good luck changing that trope in Hollywood.
It's the most meaning that this episode tries to have, and it kind of falls flat for me too. Flatlined.
There it is. Anyway, meanwhile, back on the La Serena, he starts singing like a jaybird. And saying things along the lines of, it's not the Romulans because they didn't, with whatever, stupids, I don't like you. Oh, I'm a changeling. I don't like Klingons or humans. Soon your Federation worlds will be destroyed. And so we are under the impression from what he says, and here we go. Worf says, how long have you been away from the link?
The Great Link.
The Great Link. Yes. So, but they've gone from, you're not suffering from withdrawal, you have to regenerate, and you're not going to until what is revealed. And so now the revelation that the changelings are behind this particular plot, both on the Titan and on Metalis Prime, there's a conspiracy. It's galaxy wide, or at least 2 guys. So anyway. Picard returns to the bridge and says, I think that you are...
No, that was the part. Is this the part where we discuss, is this the part where Worf talks about in the past, the changelings were powerful? Powerful enemy.
I think
Nope,
that's
not yet.
back. Yeah,
Not
I think
yet.
we cut back to that. Yeah.
Soon.
Yeah.
So anyway, Picard gets back to the bridge and says to Riker, "We have to go fight. Fighting is the time to do it." And Riker says, "Oh," and Picard says, "I think you are clouded by your feelings of loss or your worry of loss." And Riker is like, "How about you go fuck yourself and we'll call it square."
Right.
And so
Yeah,
Picard,
conflict in Star Trek is supposed to give logical reasoning, but here he gives dramatic reasoning.
you're afraid to lose anyone else, just like your son, which
Right.
hasn't been presented at all in this episode, except for a flashback, which they weren't currently privy to. So, as a storytelling device, telling us about it and mirroring the 17 seconds of both Riker and Picard, that's cool. But in terms of bringing something up like, "Hey, I think you're going to be a pussy because you have a dead son," is out of left field in terms of their relationship and their conversations so far in the present in this episode.
So
And
this scene for me
yes,
was the worst written scene, and what I thought was didn't belong. It just didn't belong in this episode. I don't know where it came from, why it was there. It doesn't serve any narrative purpose.
it's a manufactured manufactured conflict between Riker and Picard, so that they can be angry at each other.
That's for drama.
Yeah, it's just for drama, and he has to say something that would.
The problem with that, Scotty, is that they didn't need to manufacture this particular exchange, because we already had the exchange. There's already the tension that Picard wants to do it one way and Riker wants to do it a different way. So that's already there. It's already established. This felt so out of place that I just don't understand where it came from or why it's there.
I agree. And when I was watching this episode, my favorite times were when Scotty was saying that Picard needs a nap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and
I've been saying this whole time, I love the banter between Picard and Riker. I think it's great so far until this scene. The scene that's when it let me down.
Well, and this is also the part of the episode where I'm like, so they're just trying to manufacture the disagreement between Picard and Riker that they had in All Good Things. Except this time, instead of a dead Troy, we have a dead Thaddeus. And there's some sort of animosity going on that we still haven't addressed in terms of between Troy and Riker. And so this is, guys, I want you to act like you're in All Good Things again. And they're like, okay, all right. Anyway, so meanwhile, back on Metalis Prime, Titus is getting all squirrely, and Raffi's finally pieced it together, and Worf is saying, "You're a changeling," and he starts to changeling out, and he goo balls all over the place, and there you go.
First, he did that. He did have that exchange, right? Like he's like, I knew.
No, not yet, not quite yet. I know exactly where it is.
Oh, okay. I'm like, he doesn't come back though, right?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't come back. No, but he basically he does the threatening of and but he does.
Okay, I remember now. Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah.
So anyway,
and there's Donnie's favorite scene from the chat.
There it is.
Yeah.
The explosion of the changeling. Don't let it get away. And so yes, Jack's alive, as we all are rejoicing. And Seven is there and says that everything's been cleared up in terms of the leak.
That's what I meant to say.
I don't know that everybody was rejoicing, Scotty.
What, that Jack was alive? No, I was.
Were you being flippant? Because
yes.
Okay, because I was like, they have done nothing in the show so far to make me like or care about that character.
I like Jack Crusher. I just don't.
I think it's okay, but they really haven't done anything to make me feel, oh my God, he's got to live.
I really agree.
Well, and I think I'm probably the biggest advocate for Jack Crusher. Then I'm maybe when I asked Jill whether I thought he was attractive, I was projecting because I have a crush on Jack Crusher. Maybe he's no John Hamm, but
no.
Anyway, so this is John Hamm Jr. JJ. So, oh no, I can't say that on this podcast. Anyway, as Changeling Man goes to engineering and puts what appears to be a bomb. I'm trying to assess the countdown timer. This is when Worf says, many years ago, there was a great conflict with the changelings. Yeah. And it's like, we were watching this and I was like, why are you explaining the Dominion War? It's like 20 years ago. Everyone should know about it. It was devastating to the Alpha and Beta quadrants.
Right.
Yeah, but the thing he adds to it is that a terrorist faction broke away from the Dominion War. So I guess they were like, oh, we're not buying what you're selling. Oh, we're fracking off from this world.
Yes.
And Odo tells Worf about this group.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if were they all part of the Great Link, or are these changelings that were still back in the Alpha Quadrant?
Could be.
And they never made it all the way home.
Right.
To get, but then again, how would Odo know about them?
I think
people that are his people that didn't return to the Great Link, I guess he would know that.
That's a possibility, but I also think that there was a fragment of the Great Link who said, "Why are we surrendering?" And then they left.
That makes sense.
Oh yeah, okay, that does make sense. But the female changeling says that we're like drops in an ocean, so these drops, the Great Link would know that these drops are missing, so they would know which changelings are not in the Great Link anymore.
Oh, Steve, how's your Worf impression?
I don't have one.
Okay, I'll do my best then. Jill so kindly put the dialogue in the private chat. Worf explains, in the past, the changelings were a powerful enemy of the Federation, united in purpose. But when the Dominion War ended, there was a schism. A terrorist faction broke away, unwilling to accept defeat. I was contacted by a close friend within the Link, a man of honor. He informed me of this rogue group.
So Worf knows about the terrorist group from Odo, but it doesn't make sense that Starfleet would have to keep this terrorist organization a secret, because there's no way that letting people know about the threat would ignite the Dominion War. That logic doesn't follow, since those in the Dominion homeworld were linked with Odo, who showed them all why the Federation and other solids could be trusted. So the Federation should have been able to work with the founders, the ones with Odo, and to take down the terrorist group, or at least set up a way to figure out what to do with them. Yeah. So it wouldn't be a Dominion War. It would be more like what happened with the Maquis, but just more dangerous.
Yes. Yeah. And yes. And so Worf explains the situation, and they say it probably 3 different ways throughout the episode, is that the stealing of the portal gun from Daystrom was a distraction. Yes, it was misleading to distract us away from the true target that was being stolen from Daystrom, a more powerful weapon. And so
or more valuable.
And so now we are on to our second weapon MacGuffin of the series, or the season. But we've got Worf and Raffaella as partners to go on this mission to find the thing that is more threatening than the portal gun. Meanwhile,
because they realize Raffi's terrible and she needs a better actor to help her along.
Hey, I like it when you team. Yeah. And hey, would you rather her hanging out with 709 still? Would you rather have the Laverne and Shirley going on?
This is better.
So Tavine is saying something. It's probably something about the gravity well.
Yep.
They're all being sucked towards.
As the science officer, she's singularly focused on the gravity well.
Yes.
And this thing has not exactly what it appears to be.
Now, throughout this episode, because the sensors have been malfunctioning, there has been some dialogue going on in regards to how they can keep track of where the Shrike is. And Captain Shaw says, well, then someone go and look out the goddamn back windows. I would like you to notice that the door behind Riker is open, where the ready room or observation room is for the bridge, deck 1. And right behind in that room are windows.
Yes.
Yeah, they weren't joking. He was being serious.
Yeah.
No, I know, but the people who are actually observing it are probably at the tail end of the aft of the ship, where someone could literally be standing 15 feet away from the captain, responding to him in earshot. So good work.
Yeah.
Anyway, big explosion from the bomb that was planted by the changeling. Warp is not going to work, so they cannot get away. And Picard says, we have to fight. Riker says, fire everything. So the Titan fires four photon torpedoes. That apparently is the new definition of everything.
Why doesn't anyone try to transport the bomb off the ship?
I don't even think anyone knew that it was there.
Okay.
Because it was the changeling who planted it after he had subdued Jack Crusher.
Yep.
So the 4 photon torpedoes go into the portal gun, which another portal appears behind the Titan, which just blows them up real good. They have no engines anymore. Picard does again look like he pooped himself. People are being thrown all over the bridge, and the ship is sinking towards the gravity well.
So that there was one. Did we skip one, right? Because that actually happened twice. The first time they open up the gravity well, I'm sorry,
Right.
we didn't skip one. But the first time they opened the what do we call it? The portal gun.
Portal gun. Yep.
Right, portal gun. It works exactly how it should be. They launch it way in front of the I almost said in front of the Titan. It goes in, comes out somewhere else. The second time they use that, they use it completely in a new way, where all of a sudden it just appears like right here. It's very it's not consistent in the way that this weapon should be used. So I that really stuck with me. I'm like, wait a minute, they just changed the physics of how this gun it works. So I mean that part bothered me. I'm like, I don't mind that we're playing with wormholes. That's fine, but and I don't mind that that if that's if you're going to set up your world and those that's the box that this world lives in, that's fine. But then don't in the scene, just because you need it to work a different way, go outside of that box and say, okay, because we don't know how to do it within our box. We have to go outside our box, and that really bothered me. Really, really bothered me about this episode. Because they don't launch it. I mean, you have to be.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Coordinates. You have to make sure that it's out in front, and then it's like all of a sudden the Shrike is like right here, and then bam, there's a wormhole opens, or a portal opens, and you're just like, and I was like, wait, that's not how you just told me this weapon functions.
Right.
So now you're telling me that you can just pick and choose whenever this thing's going to open up. I don't think that's how it works, or that's not how you showed me it worked the first time.
Yeah, it went from being a torpedo that would open a portal to being just literally a portal gun.
Right, just a portal, wherever you want to point it at. So I don't know if that tracks, or maybe I'm just
no. You're absolutely correct. And if you wanted to go with the consistency of the physics of the weapon, the way that it is deployed for the Starfleet Recruitment Center doesn't make any sense either, because there was no discernible torpedo that went towards the surface.
Right. I mean, unless there's a way to, unless they tell us there's a way to transport it to a certain coordinate, because they weren't in space at that time, right? They were on a planet, so you could actually transport that thing into the building. Right.
Possibility.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes more sense than just opening it up in the middle of space, right? Without having to.
Yep.
It didn't make a lot of sense and bothered me. I was like, wait a minute, this is I mean, I don't mind how wild you want to make your science or your fantasy, or your sci-fi. But if you set up rules, stick to your rules.
Make it consistent. Yeah, for sure. So the yes, we have the Titan is now falling. Everyone is upset because it appears that we are dead in space, just falling towards the gravity well. And Riker tells Picard, "You've
Just
killed
go
us all. Get off the bridge." Picard wanders away. Not wanders, but leaves the bridge. Riker very, very angry. The rest of the crew shocked, looking around, and this is the appropriate part where the lights are all turned off because they are severely damaged. And the ship falls to next week.
Yeah.
And I did not get the end credits this time. I did not think it was necessary, but that is
because I don't think they change.
no, I don't think they.
They didn't really change too much, but Michael Okuda does show up in the credits. I don't know if he showed up last week.
Oh, that's good.
As as the only other link to Star Trek that this show has, besides Jerry.
Well, and the cast.
Well, the cast. I mean, creatively.
Well, okay. So, before we go through the chat,
yes.
final thoughts on the episode, or I guess not final thoughts because we're going to go through the chat and we're going to learn more things. But overall,
I
we're
didn't
going.
prepare any final thoughts, but Riker didn't have any. There was no reason for him to get after Picard for his own decision. Riker made that ultimate decision. We should stick with the responsibility that comes with it.
Yeah. Overall, I think this is out of the three that have aired. I am giving the grace of 4 to talk about next week because I heard that 4 is when it really kicks into gear. So I am looking forward to that. But if it were me, I would be like, meh, this one's fine, whatever. I don't worst of the 3.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I will agree with that. I do like the first episode a lot better than this one. The second episode I did like. I'd have to watch this one again, just one more time to really put them in order. But yeah, I would say this is if there's a filler episode or a weak episode, this is that one.
Right.
Not saying all filler is weak, by the way. Some filler is fine, but yeah, it wasn't the greatest episode I've seen, but we've only seen 3, and yeah, I'm looking forward to next week.
Yeah. Well, and I'm looking forward to hopefully what begins the. I think at this point we can hope that the table has been set. There is no more establishment. We are full tilt boogie. We've got Worf and Raffi headed off somewhere, and we have a cliff to unhang from in terms of the Titan.
The way it's been told to me is that it's got a 3-act structure. Where it's the first 4 episodes are Act 1, so this should have some kind of crescendo in episode 4, and then the next 4 episodes are Act 2, and then you get your Act 3 or your finale in the last 2 episodes.
So you don't even get a full chapter until you get into 4 episodes.
Yeah, I believe that seems like the logical way this is kind of progressing.
So we know the nebula is probably alive or something.
There have been indications of biological activity.
Yeah.
So, Scogli, you're absolutely correct. I have a Jack crushee.
Yes, you do.
I do. And PvP says no mention of the long Picard Beverly scene. No, we did. We covered it. I think so.
We did.
I've been sort of glossing just because it seems like I didn't want you to know your son. I wanted to know my son. You were going to be killed. And I never realized that until the moment we started having sex.
Yeah, that's a pretty good scene.
It was well acted, but in terms of the motivations of both characters, I guess that's why they broke up 5 times.
Right. 5 times.
Sci-Fi Nation says, I'd love to stay in chat, but I'm not here. I can't take it. Take care, all. Well, and see you later, Sci-Fi. We just wanted to get through the plot of the show. PvP says, I actually enjoyed the Picard and Beverly scene. It was nice to see a long scene with no interruptions. See? Okay.
Right. I know what he's talking about, how the episode seems to be kind of erratic with jumping from one storyline to the other storyline in between just a couple lines of dialogue instead of sticking with one story for a little longer. But that's just how they decide to pace it.
Yes, and it's very familiar and very kind of the way TV shows, especially streaming shows, are made nowadays. Especially if you're trying to tell multiple storylines.
Vic says, yeah, I got bored with this Picard and Beverly scene. 82-year-old Patrick Stewart showed his age here. I thought, yeah, I thought that, yes, but I thought that Sir Patrick Stewart was throughout. I kept saying, wake up.
But, you know, to be fair, I think that's the case. All 3 episodes, every time there's a lengthy exchange, he shows his age. It's just there. It's just really hard to get around. I do think that Riker, when it's him and Riker with the longer scenes, Riker holds him up by coming down, and actually Shaw does that too by coming down a bit, which shows the level of actors both of those men are.
Yeah, good actors will do that. Will take into consideration the abilities of their co-stars.
But you're absolutely right, 100% there.
PvP says was actually a bit of real drama. And then in regards to Beverly's argument, the thing is, this scene, they're trying to make Picard like Kirk. They're trying to say Picard has a big enemies, Picard-sized enemies, and Picard always has a target on his head. That's Kirk. I think it could also be Picard in terms of his interactions.
I think that's pretty well established throughout Next Generation, especially in the last season too.
The last season, oh man, that season of the mysterious family members that we never knew about before. Oh yeah, there was an episode actually where there was a pretend son Picard had. Yep. There was like a son. Picard didn't actually have a son, but somebody was trying to kill him.
Yeah, the Ferengi.
Yeah.
Damon Bach. Yes. Nemesis of Eden says Jonathan is one of my favorite parts of this season.
Me too.
Vic Fontaine also agrees. And PvP, I appreciate you being a speedometer on how many people are watching. Thank you so much. Edge of Time says I liked the part where he drank the bong water. Which part? Who was that? Me? I could have drank the bong water. Yes. Nemesis of Eden. It's never mind. I don't want to tell stories. Nemesis of Eden says they really got to stop equipping these ships with explodium panels. True. Hakeem is here.
Major flaw in the Federation shipbuilding yards.
Yeah.
Hello, Hakeem.
Yes. Hakeem is here. They should bring back the button panels. They might be less explodey. Yes, that's true. That's true.
But probably not. They'll probably be exactly as explodey.
Here we are. And Captain Finity says lamp shading is specifically for drawing attention to an error without fixing it. And yes, agreed. That's what I thought. And whether you're hanging a lantern or lamp shading, it's still something that we are aware of. We don't want to deal with it. Let's move on. Vic Fontaine says, didn't Crusher's ship get thrown into the Titan and tear the heck out of the saucer section in the last episode? I kept looking for the damage, but didn't see it in this photo.
It tore the heck out of the shielding, but I don't remember seeing like all that like a big gouge or scorching on the hull.
In the last episode, there was marring on the hull that was gone in this. But yes,
I guess we fix ships really fast in the 25th century.
Sci-Fi Nation says she was hunting methodically. Then she went after the Titan system by system, completely different. And then Sci-Fi says there was only one scene where the Titan got hit with its torpedo, and Ray routed the ship twice.
The second time I thought was no good. Didn't make sense.
Edge of Time says small lobe energy, FML. Well, that's Sneed for you.
Mm-hmm. Lost his head for it.
Yes, it's true. Sci-Fi Nation says, to be fair, Picard was right early in the episode when Riker was given command to go and fight.
That turns. I mean, I guess it's 6-1, half a dozen the other, right? It's just kind of. It depends, kind of how you see it, but I think Sci-Fi Nation would agree that by the end it was clear that Riker was, right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on a second. Oh. And Daniel's hot topic says, I was hoping that Seven would punch that officer out. Absolutely. And
well, no, I actually liked Scotty during the episode. He said, why didn't they just call the bridge and just say, hey?
Yes.
Yeah, well, yeah. And the only reason they didn't do that is because they needed it to do it 2 minutes later in the episode. So, yeah, it was silly.
And Sci-Fi Nation and everyone on the in the chat and listening on the rerun, I do apologize for the sniffing. I know it's probably annoying. I don't even realize I'm doing it. It's gross.
The Coke was good today, so.
Do you want to buy some death sticks? Daniel's hot topic says, pause at the scene where Worf is vaporizing the changeling. I did.
Yes, Daniel, we got that for you.
You don't want to sell me death sticks.
It's the first death that makes sense.
Sci-Fi Nation says, Jill, I'm thinking the episode The Warrior that had the 2 Klingon fugitives, season 1. Was that called The Warrior? No, it's Heart of Glory.
Yes.
I
had to look that one up to figure out what he was talking about. But I did end up enjoying taking a break, pausing from this to go look up real Star Trek. That was fun.
Fair enough. Daniel's hot topic says J.J. Abrams talks compelling story for Star Trek 4. Chris Pine expresses frustration over weight. I still don't think it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, I don't either. But
thank you for the headline.
Yeah, I don't trust JJ with anything. So
me neither.
And again, hello, Ash. It's good to see
Ashley.
you. Let me see. And thank you, Jill, for jumping into the chat. And I appreciated Ash saying, that's okay. I only came to see you guys. Anyways, go on with the nerd shit.
We certainly do a lot of that.
Commodore Boone said Jack took in the gas and he had visions and see tree limbs, roots, and then he had a heart attack. Absolutely. That is what happened. Well, yeah, inhalation. And Daniel's hot topic says, like they're talking about how a new threat in Picard season 1 and 2, and the Changeling does talk about the Federation will burn. When you put it all together, something bad is coming. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because everything is dystopic and destructive. And
it is gonna. I don't know.
Bad.
It is. Starfleet seems to be the target in terms of the rumblings of the process of the show. I don't know if that means that it's going to be a galactic threat or whether Earth is going to be destroyed. But obviously, it being New Trek, it does have to be a huge event.
And from what we know of the Foundlings and their strategy, they're always it makes sense in the show that they're fighting on multiple fronts, and I think that makes sense. It makes sense.
They do make sense as infiltrators,
right? That we not only we're dealing with the Titan and the gun, but it ties into what Rafi and Worf, or Rufy and Worf are doing, and they this is kind of how the founders plot and scheme, and they're pretty good at it.
And if they've completely infected the Starfleet and Federation in general in such a way that they've taken it down already from the inside, then that makes more sense why nothing is good.
It does. I agree.
Commodore Boone says Bev zaps Jack several times to bring Jack to life. Yeah, but never the neurocortical stimulators. I don't know. Oh, anyway. And Sci-Fi Nation says an F. Riker. We don't know what happened to his son yet. Yes, we do. We find out in Nepenthe, an episode of season 1 of Picard. He had some sort of positronic virus, or the virus could have been counteracted by synthetic brain stuff. And but
against the rules, and suddenly Riker cares about the rules.
Yeah, medical science could not catch up without the synthetic. Commodore Boone says, "Hey, Scotty R37, how many times did you watch this episode? Twice. And Sci-Fi Nation says more times than he could be on my stream, Jim. It's true. It's I did. I had to do research. Where do these slides? They don't make themselves. Right, Jill?
Right.
Hakeem says it felt too forced and rushed to me.
Oh, which part?
And yeah, and that's the thing is that I can Hakeem, I can agree. I just don't know which part.
You know what? I think this is the part where that scene that we all thought should have been there and didn't understand why it was there. I think that's where we were in the chat.
Fair enough. Hakeem says decent episode, but had a few flaws. Better than the last two episodes. Interesting. All right, fair enough.
It's everybody differently.
Yeah, and that's great. Like that's
I'm. Art, man.
Oh, and I didn't make the poll, but I'm not going to start it now. But I should have at the beginning. Ah, well,
Yeah.
we'll be back. We'll do another poll next week.
I'll try to remind you next week. I totally blew it. I forgot today.
That was my mistake. Anyway, Edge of Time says filth is gonna filth, and it does.
Gonna filth.
And it does. Still, and again, I'm gonna give it best of the filth, but anyway.
Yeah, low bars and all.
Daniel's Hot Topic says, I hope the Iconians are coming. Admiral Vance in Discovery Season 4 mentioned the Iconians. They always dust off the Iconians when they want to bring some sort of galaxy-wise or universe-wide intrigue to it. I don't know what's going to happen. And again,
because of the introduction of the changelings and this offshoot, I don't know that we need any other big bad other than them. They're badasses when they want to be. So
yeah, and the Iconians are kind of just like some ancient race that we don't really know that much about, except they have a Stargate.
Yes. Well, yes, they do. Yes. True. The Iconian portals, as seen in Contagion from season 2, I think. But yeah, and that brings us to the end of the chat. I would like to say thank you so much to everybody who was here, who is here. Thank you, Daniel's Hot Topics, Edge of Time, Hakeem, of course, Sci-Fi Nation, Commodore Boone, always a pleasure to see you. And again, congratulations on another successful orbit, Sci-Fi Nation, Ashley Lynn, Gaia Storm, Captain Infinity was here, PvP was here, and Mega Reacts was here. Thank you so much, Vic Fontaine. You are a goddess amongst gods, or reverse that. Edge of Time once again. Nemesis of Eden, how could I forget? You are not old. I never said you were old. Scogly, thank you for dropping by. And I believe that is everyone that I could think of, or at least read. Oh, and Matt G. Matt G was here as well. Oh, again, I sniffed, and I apologize for that.
You got allergies.
But that's good.
Sure.
Flake, brother.
Exactly. And thank you, Hakeem. Awesome panel and chat.
Thank you.
And I enjoy this more than the show. Well, thank you for hanging out and playing with us, Hakeem. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Yeah,
I haven't seen you in a while, and so this is a great place to check you back. And Daniel's Hot Topic says, Scotty, I may have said this before, and if I did, I apologize. However, it sucks that we will only see the Enterprise F a bit at the end of Picard Season 3. The Enterprise F was commissioned in 2386. Really? I would like to see any Enterprise, and I am looking forward to it. I haven't heard when it's coming in terms of the spoilers of the rest of the show, but
definitely does look up his news and research.
Yes, he does. He is exceptional at it when it comes to things that are coming down the pike, and I like the speculation, man. Keep it up. And Commodore Boone says, night, everyone. So with that, are there any closing thoughts on the episode, or shall we just prepare for season 4 and hope, or not season 4, episode 4, and then see whether or not it is the starter's pistol that we have all been sort of referenced towards?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see. I think the first episode was a starter pistol, even though it was laying groundwork. But I still think this season is already off to a better start than the other two. It was right after it was episode 3, I think, of both seasons where the season just started to crash, at least for me. So hopefully, this will continue to be good and maybe even get better, which would be awesome. But other than that, I think we said pretty much everything we need to say.
Yeah, it's so dark and depressing, and Starfleet is still a dystopia. So if all of that is because changelings have broken off and done some things, then
you know what? If that's what comes to be, I hope that they launch off of that. If they're going to keep doing shows, and they will. I know this is really wishful thinking, but I hope they get back to that idyllic Starfleet that we knew.
At least on some basic level,
right?
Like it could still be like Deep Space Nine, where not everything's perfect, but
but there's still the universe is still, or at least our quadrant of the universe is still optimistic, and Starfleet is still optimistic and hopeful, and I hope they get there eventually.
Yeah, if Terry achieves that, that'll be something.
I doubt that's going to happen in this season, but I hope eventually, with what other projects, that they don't keep it all dark and bleak, and Starfleet is the ultimate baddie just to tell these kind of stories. It's kind of antithetical to what
exactly. I agree.
Star Trek was.
And turn on the lights a little bit.
And turn on
the lights. I do like that.
Right.
But yes, I'm looking forward to the motivations of who is going after what, and once we find that and have some forward thrust, that will be interesting. And I guess the only other thing is, well, no, I guess that's not even a thing. I'm still meh with it. It's new Star Trek. I'm watching it because it isn't awful, and it's not joyous either. It is still, I'm veering all over middle of the road. There are stuff that I really don't like, and I think that they are mishandling some of the jangly keys. And if you're going to use a jangly key, use it properly. But this, I would say, the worst crime that the show has done so far is reintroduce the characters into a Star Wars setting with a Star Trek paint job. That's how I feel about the show so far. At the 1/4 mark, like the 1/3 mark.
Scotty, I would say I think the biggest gripe is the one that you brought up today with the ship.
Right.
If
it's
not addressed, that dampers the whole season. It really does.
Tavine at one point does say there is an unknown, it's an anomaly of unknown, or it's an unknown anomaly. And it was like, yeah, you just said anomalies twice. You just said, like, in terms of the science fiction being presented in it, and it is much more concerned about, let's go save this person, and now we're going to interact with this big ship, and now we have to have a fight in this nebula, which we will bear, which is as dangerous as the asteroid field in Empire Strikes Back, essentially. And like, it is in terms of boldly going where no man has gone before. No.
The science it gives you, it's like scraps, and you got to piece them together.
Yeah.
And in terms of the optimistic and hopeful vision of the future, not really.
They could have just introduced a new ship. Could have been the same exact class of ship and just called it the Macarena.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah. All right. Without I think we're good. Are we good?
We're good.
Okay. Then let's see. Jill, I think it's your time to do the hailing frequencies thing.
Second star to the right and straight on until morning.
No, this is too good. That's too good a closing line for this show. just close the hailing frequencies.
Okay. Close the hailing frequencies closed.